everyone. Welcome to an episode of Normal America. I wasn't going to do the show today, but, it's been big. It's been a big news day. And Biden did his big boy press conference, and I thought that I just had to comment somewhat. What a big boy conference, wasn't that? Yeah, I just can't. I told you all, my son Hank, who's 3 years old, he has a car seat, as all youngsters would, and we call his car seat the big boy car seat. It's the big boy seat, and so I'm glad that my 3-year-old, who actually I would trust to run the country better than Joe Biden, I'm glad I talked to him very similarly as how our Biden administration talks to Biden. It was great. It was a great big boy press conference. We'll talk all things memey and serious about it. Don't worry, it will be good. But of course, the big news to come out of the press conference, it's been a busy day for Joe Biden. He got to introduce the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Putin, and then in a very difficult big boy press conference, told everyone he has the utmost confidence in the leadership abilities of Vice President Trump. He wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump if he didn't think he had the ability to be president. So great news. It's great when even President Trump's opponent endorses how great he would be. So fantastic news. It's great to hear Vice President. And it raises a lot of interesting questions. For example, everybody knows that if Biden no longer runs for office, the money he's raised can only go to someone who's on the ticket. And so if it's not someone on the ticket, then that money has to be given to a super PAC, et cetera, et cetera. It has to be loops to be jumped through. However, if it goes to his vice president, then that money, the nomination goes to the vice president, then that money would be able to be kept. So my question is, if Biden drops out, does that money go to Vice President Trump that he raised? I'm not sure. Maybe Trump could use that to pay off some of the Democratic lawfare fines that he's been forced to pay. So interesting, but man, that Joe Biden, sharp as a tack, man. He's killing it. Of course, all you have to do is go to your favorite left-wing streamer's feed, and you'll see just how amazing Joe Biden's press conference is. My favorite, of course, being Wick. Wick, who couldn't decide. He didn't know what, the people that are telling him what to think or that are paying him what to think, he didn't know what the official line was after the debate last Thursday. You remember I went on to Wick's panel and I was like, now what do you got to say, Wick? This cognitive decline's been evident. And Wick said, I think I said before that he had declined. And now, of course, ever since then, Wick's got the official memo that no, we have to support Biden, and his decline's not as bad. He couldn't make up his mind that night. He had to ruminate on what his sort of opinions would be going forward. Wick thinks this was a tremendous press conference. In fact, he said it was delivered, and this word's really key, forcefully. It was a forcefully delivered press conference. Let me repeat that. Forceful. I guess if you think forceful's talking like this when you're talking to people while talking to pre-scripted reporters that tend to be favorable to you. Wow, what a high energy, forceful press conference. At least he was talking a little louder when he was praising Vice President Trump. So it's amazing. Just watch them go. Watch the jokers to the left of me, right? We're stuck in the middle with them. It's surreal. It's surreal to watch them. Half the Democrats like, Jesus, we lied about Biden's clear cognitive issues and now we're caught. So we have to pretend we didn't know until the debate and now we're desperately trying to force Biden out. And the other half of them are going, nah, what cognitive issues? Oh my goodness. It's fantastic. It's just fantastic. Now look. I'm not going to sit here to be Mr. Red Pill all the way. Oh, this means MAGA forever. Trump wins. The country's going to turn around. I still think that there will be enough shenanigans that Trump won't win. I still think even if Trump wins, he won't be able to accomplish things to actually drain the swamp in a significant way. But I digress. Regardless of what happens, to watch the people that have so arrogantly talked down to those of us who have just accurately reported what we could see with our own eyes, to watch their coping and their melting down in real time is chef's kiss. It is brilliant. May I may the day that I'm forced to sit here and cope and be like, I don't see Mitch McConnell, there's a medical problem, I don't see it. May that be the day that I never stream again. When I sell out that bad, maybe that day will come and you'll clip this and say, but Rob, remember 30 years ago when you said you'd never sell out like this? You bring it up. Of course, then I'll be a millionaire because I'm being paid by some PAC, you know. My goodness, to watch it, it's surreal. Of course, I told Wick, you know, I'll just show you. I don't get to ratio many people because I have a small channel. And I don't have a lot of people that follow me on places like X. So it's rare I get to ratio someone, but I think this qualifies as a ratio. Wick says, Biden's press conference is good, actually. He's doing fine so far. His messaging's on point with forceful delivery. With 57 likes, and I said, totally agree. I particularly like his confidence in Vice President Trump. With 65 likes. Yay, ratio! Woo! I beat Wick! Yes! I beat Wick! Man, imagine the skill and talent it takes to beat Wick on this issue. For example, my son in his big boy car seat, who's 3 years old, could do that. But hey, I'll still take a victory anytime I could get it. I beat Wick last night too, right? Along with everyone else that was on that panel. Maybe we'll talk a little about that. For my own indulgence, it might be worth to go over that debate again last night. My goodness. You missed a great one if you weren't there. Just epic. Let's just say the Progressive Victory PAC isn't hiring the best and brightest. Make me an offer. Come on, Brianna, I know you hate me, but you can't deny how talented I am. Make me an offer. Now, I'm not going to completely sell out. I'm not going to go Connor on people, but I'm willing to forcefully argue that Joe Biden should stay in the race or it's undemocratic. I'll make that argument. Maybe Progressive Victory sends me $3,000 a month to make that argument. I'm not going to say you should vote for Biden, but I'll damn sure say he should stay in the race. Sound good? If he's good enough, if they're not going to 25th Amendment him, and he's good enough to finish out the term, he's the dude that the voters picked to run as the Democrat. Let him go. Democracy, baby. Now let's talk seriously. Of course, the big meme is after the disastrous calling Zelensky Putin earlier, saying President of Ukraine Putin, he then calls his Vice President Trump. The peak memingness, and this is actually, it just illustrates, like, Joe Biden has a tendency to, like, as he's leaving a press conference, like, give a zinger. People will be yelling questions at him, and 90% of the time, the zinger just, it makes him look so much worse. So, as he takes his finished taking his pre-scripted questions, people start yelling questions, and the one that gets through to Biden is, you know, Mr. President, your opponent, Trump, is on social media right now mocking you because previously in this very conference, when you were asked about your vice president, you said Vice President Trump. What do you say to people that are saying that they're mocking you for this? And Biden like leans in and goes, listen to him. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right. He's saying that you seriously have mental issues. Thank you. I mean, he could have been like, I slipped up. You know, but listen to him. He did a lot of that, like, creepy, like, you know, I think he's been as someone who's probably been suffering this from signs of dementia or cognitive decline for a while, one of the things that happens that's associated with things like sundowning is undue aggression towards people. And I've seen this with people I knew with Alzheimer's and other issues like that they'll get very angry at someone and yell at them, like, oftentimes completely unprovoked. And you can see that even in the lead up to 2020 when he would be at a rally or something, and someone would ask him a difficult question. You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. I challenge you to a push-up contest right now. What? Right? Like, okay. Like, that's... And so I think he would do that to members of the press that would ask him hostile questions too. And so I think at one point probably his staff was like, you can't yell like that. It's not a good look. It's not good. Now, it's fine. This seems unfair to say, but I could go into detail if you want. It depends on what the image you're cultivating is, right? If you're cultivating a firebrand type image, that's fine. But they're trying to set Biden up as a dichotomy to Trump, where Trump is this boisterous, sort of vulgar guy, and Biden's supposed to be this elder statesman, right? That was the image. So it doesn't look good to be yelling at the voters, right? That's not necessarily a great look for him. Maybe someone could pull it off that's a little different, that has a different perception, but it doesn't look good for Biden. So I think probably what happened was people around him was like, you can't yell. So then his way of addressing that's like, then instead of yelling, I'll sort of, when I get angry, I'll whisper and try to make that sound authoritative. Do you understand? And so he's done that a while. It's something that I've commented he's done in the past. There was a lot of that sort of thing tonight. So let's talk about sort of, without really delving into it, I tweeted out the whole time, but without going back and looking at my tweets, let's talk about the good and the bad. I'll try to be as honest as possible and not meme my way through here. The first part of the speech was pre-written, and it was talking about sort of the NATO conference and a couple other key issues. Regarding the substance on those, I don't think that a lot of times it's clearly putting things in a rosy picture, but it wasn't bad. I'm not going to say that it was like the most lying I've ever seen. And I thought he delivered that speech just fine. He did. There wasn't a tremendous, there was an odd stuttering here and there. Nothing terrible. The number one reason people were listening tonight was to see how is Biden's mental health. That's what, can he recover? Can he give an inspiring performance tonight, particularly to assuage his own party? And nothing in that pre-prepared speech diminished that. It would have been hard for that part to be so fantastic that people would have said, well, that's it. Clearly, they wanted to hear how he responded to questions. So I didn't think that part cost him anything. And props to them for not just taking the opportunity to come out and say, trust me, I'm mentally here, but to say, here's the issues I was working on today. That is the right way to go about it. Use the press conference portion, the question portion, to prove your mental competence, and take the speech at first ahead of time to tout some issues you want to tout. So I thought that was fine. It wasn't a fantastic speech, but it was a normal speech that you would expect a pre-written speech delivered by a president to be able to give. It was totally fine. I didn't think there was a tremendous amount of gaffes. You could instantly see that sort of his energy level and the rapidity of how he spoke immediately started to decline when he started to get to the first questions. Now, a bad look right out of the gate is when he says, I've been given a list of people I'm supposed to call on. This is bad for two reasons. One, there should have been a list. He could have been told, look, these are the people you want to make sure you get to, but it should have been picking people out and answering organic questions. That's how the bulk of Trump press conferences went. And Trump's press conferences were also always taking questions. The bulk of the people in the press conference were completely antagonistic towards Trump, but he would also call on the most antagonistic people like Jim Acosta. Biden's team doesn't do any of that. They didn't even call on a token person from Fox. Nothing. They basically called on outlets that had been responsible for covering up Joe Biden's decline for the past 3 years. So it's not like they were like, let's call on someone from Fox, like Peter Doocy, or let's call on someone from Breitbart or Newsmax. They didn't do that. And I don't think that the questions were particularly pointed. There were some questions like, what do you say to assuage people that think after the debate you're struggling, blah, blah, blah. And those questions were predictable. They had to be asked, but none of them were that pointed. None of them. There weren't any questions about the cabinet not convening for 9 months. There weren't any questions about Hunter Biden's role in advising him. Someone who in his own words has admitted to working for the spy master of China, who Biden said doesn't have any connections to with the business, etc. So there were no difficult questions in that sense, but they weren't all complete lobs either. Answers the first question, it was sort of fine. And then the second question, he has the disastrous Vice President Trump line. Now let me steel man this as much as possible. Have I ever used the wrong person's name? Yes. In fact, I do it a lot when it comes, I have two brothers, right? And I sometimes when I'm talking to my wife, I'll be like, oh, my brother Jesse, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, wait, you mean Dustin? And I'm like, oh, yeah. So, like, I've done that. And Trump's done it. And most politicians have done it. And most of you have done it. Here's the problem. The fact that they were so dishonest about Biden's cognitive issues for so long, and now the American people saw exactly what was going on in that debate, now everything's under a microscope. So even things that you could say as a one-off that normal people would do isn't a big deal, it's going to be magnified under Biden, rightly or wrongly. That's just the truth. Because people know there's an underlying issue there. So now any signs of it is going to be something that people are going to go, and then it happens twice in one day. He calls the Ukrainian president Putin. He calls his vice president Trump. It's becoming a pattern. Remember when he gave the press conference after the Her report came out? And he gave this press conference. He starts walking off stage. Then he turns around. As soon as he turns around, you could tell that his team was like, oh, shit. And he gives that big, I talked to the president of Mexico, El Sisi. And you're just like, oh, no, here we go. It's one of those moments again. It's a pattern. That's right. Had he been under a microscope like Trump for 4 years, this wouldn't be something that would be even necessary to do right now. So 30 years from now, when I'm president and I say someone's name wrong and people point to these tweets that are like, Rob said Vice President, how ridiculous it was that Biden said Vice President Trump. I'm sort of memeing through it. On its own, I don't think it's a big issue. But the entire point of this press conference was needing to assuage the Democrat people, the people in your own party, that you don't have significant mental decline, which makes it very difficult for you to win the presidency. They don't give a shit whether or not you'll be a good president. No, almost none of them care about that. They were going right along with the lie. They care now because it's hurting their chances to win the presidency, and it might hurt them down ballot. So this press conference wasn't for Trump supporters. They know that. This press conference was for moderates that haven't made up their mind to say, no, trust us, Biden's still there. He's still there. But more importantly, for the people in his own party that are trying to stab him in the back and get him out. And having that gaffe does not help. They're going to they want Biden gone because they don't think he has a good chance of winning. Not because they don't think he would be capable of being president. They don't give a shit about that. They know Biden's not running his office. It's people behind him. They're only concerned about maintaining power, and they think Biden's hurting those chances. So they're going to latch onto anything. And Biden saying Vice President Trump, and then with his final answer where he's basically like, listen to him when it's brought that up. It's a bad look. As for the rest of what he said, he also has another gaffe at some point where he talks specifically about listening to his commander-in-chief. Not quite as bad of a gaffe as the vice president gaffe, but still not great. A couple other things that I thought were interesting. Biden said something that I'm actually totally on board with. Now, I know that Biden will eventually change his rhetoric on this, but he's telling you the truth on this point tonight. This is absolutely true. He's basically, granted, he sort of has a stilted way of talking, but he's basically saying, I've made the decision that I'm going to keep running. I think I'm doing a good job. And that's the democratic process. I won the primary. And so if at the convention they pick someone else, that would be undemocratic. Absolutely right. That is 100% absolutely right. And the irony is, then when he says previous to that, where he starts to say, they made fun of me when I started giving a speech on democracy. Now, do you understand how democracy is under threat? No, democracy is not under threat. And the majority of Democrats understand that. They understand that Trump didn't incite an insurrection. They understand that the electoral college theory of having alternate electors was to trigger a court case that would have looked at allegations of fraud, and they understood that that wasn't a coup. But they know that it's good for them to say, January 6th, democracy's on the ballot. And there's even been reporting coming out that privately many Democrats are saying, we know that's not true. We know that it's not the end of the world if Trump wins. They know it. They know that Trump's not going to instill himself as dictator for the next 50 years. They understand that. They're just bullshitting you. And it was very similar to how they bullshit you in 2016 and 2020. Oh, the country's over if Trump gets in there. It's bullshit. It's true. However, if we are concerned, if the very people saying democracy's on the ballot, well, perhaps what Biden's alluding to is a bunch of people behind the scenes are trying to force Biden out. And make no mistake, if Biden decides not to run, it will be because he was forced out. He told you, plain as day, I'm not planning on dropping out. Now, there's going to be an awful lot of people that are in the Democratic Party that are going to try to force him out because they don't think they could win with Biden. And regardless of what you think of Joe Biden, if he right now is 100% come hell or high water, I think I'm the man to beat Trump, I think I'm capable, that means that if he steps down, he was basically forced down. And that is anti-democratic. It's already anti-democratic in this sense. The people in the Democratic Party and the media that are now calling for Biden to drop out full well knew that Biden had these issues before he won the primary. They knew it. And they lied to the American people. Because they thought they could hide Biden's condition just like they have for the past 4 years, and that he would go ahead and beat Trump, and they would say, great, then we're really still running things because it's not Biden running things anyways, it's people behind the scenes. That was what they believed. And then, unfortunately, the American people got to see who Biden really is. Now they're like, uh-oh. So it's already anti-democratic to intentionally gaslight the voters, which then they think they're expressing their will. Okay, we're voting for Joe Biden for our primary because all of this knowledge was kept from them. Now it's too late. The average Democratic voter now no longer can have any say in who their nominee will be. It'll either be that it's just selected because it's part of the ticket that Kamala Harris will take over, or they'll have delegates at the convention pick it. No matter, the Democratic voter, the democracy of each person getting a vote in the Democratic Party is gone. Now, not quite the same as not being able to vote in a general election, but still subverting the will of the people. It still is. Ultimately, how was this press conference? Who are the winners and losers? The losers are the country, all of us, because that dude's president. That's number one. The second losers are the people that want Biden out in the Democratic Party. So like sort of the Obama faction, the ones that want Biden gone. They lose tonight because despite the gaffes, Biden did just well enough that there's not something that they could really latch their claws into to say, this is why Biden must go today. Now that day will no doubt come. There will be more gaffes in the future. Yeah, George Clooney lost tonight, right. Now that doesn't mean Biden did a stellar job. He did not. For any average politician, the initial reading of his speech was an average speech, and the question was below average once he got to answering questions, which were all pre-selected people. So not a good performance. But the bar is so low for Biden that he passed the bar of basically falling on his face and shitting his pants. He didn't do that. Okay. He surpassed his performance at the debate. So it was a little better than the debate, but Omex is right. It wasn't enough to really assure someone. I mean, here's the problem. And I tweeted this out earlier. Like, I know I've been using a lot of shit references lately. I don't know what is on my mind here. But imagine I go to give a speech tomorrow, and I get on stage and I'm wearing white pants, and I piss and shit myself and start crying and run off stage. And then next week I get up to give a speech, and it's a terrible speech, but I didn't piss and shit myself, and I finished the speech. And then all of you on here were like, I knew it! There's no problem with Rob. He's perfect. We knew it. You would say, no, that doesn't change last week's performance. There's something clearly wrong, right? Just because he muddled through a speech today. And that's particularly true of cognitive decline, right? Of course, there are lucid moments. The problem is when you're talking about the office of the presidency, it's not good enough to be okay 75% of the time. Because when we need you, it might be the 25% where you're the muttering fool that we saw on the debate stage. So even if he would have given a stellar performance tonight, it would have helped him. But it certainly doesn't mean, oh, I guess we are wrong about the cognitive decline. Right? But he didn't do that. He didn't do good. This was not a good speech. It was bad. It had gaffes. It has ammunition for the people that don't like him. But it wasn't as bad as the debate. It wasn't enough to be an immediate, that's it. You can't do it. And so those people that desperately want Biden gone, it's a lose for them. It's a win for, who do you think tonight's a win for? You tell me, who do you think tonight was a win for? If the losers are the people that want Biden gone, who is the winner tonight? Any guesses or any opinions? Putin. I don't know. Did he promise to give more money to Ukraine, to Ukrainian President Putin? I didn't hear that. That's right. Omex nails it. It's a win for Trump. That's who it's a win for. It's not necessarily a win for our enemies because it might be a win for Trump. It's not a win for Biden. Biden breaks even. Biden's in the same position today that he was this morning. He didn't do anything to really help him. Do you think that the needle moved for anyone that he needs? Any of the Democrats that have came out publicly or privately that are saying we're really worried about Biden, do you think any of them are like, oh, good enough for us? No. They might say that publicly, but I assure you this speech didn't do that for them. Do you think any of the moderate voters that were turned off by Biden's debate performance are like, oh, now my fears are assuaged? No. Trump's the winner. You remember going into the debate when I told you that Trump had to do something very difficult at this debate? He had to win, but not win huge. Now, I ended up being wrong by that because he won he won by a very huge margin. He could have done better, but the margin was so huge because it was probably the worst presidential debate performance I've ever seen. So by default, he wins by a huge margin. But the reason I had for saying that was, if Trump would have won too big, they might have decided to replace Biden. And that's not what Trump wants. Trump wants to run against Biden. So he wanted to win, but not win so bad that they're just like, pull the plug. Now that's almost what happened, and it may still be the end result of that. But that's exactly what tonight was as well. The needle didn't really move, which is good. Ask yourself this. Has these past 2 weeks been good for Trump or good for the Democrats? Anyone who's been remotely paying attention knows it's been abysmal for the Democrats. Which by default means, and because Trump's kind of kept his mouth shut, it's been very good for Trump. So Trump doesn't want the needle moving. If the needle moves too far against Biden, they'll replace Biden, which completely changes the race. If the needle moves back to Biden being really great, well, that's also not great for Trump. It's in a perfect Goldilocks spot right now for Trump's team. Yep, keep her rolling. Keep it up. Keep letting the infighting go. And that's the end result of tonight's speech. The people that didn't want Biden to go on the Democrat side are going to say, see, he could do it. We don't want him to go. The people that do want Biden to go are going to say, look at the gaffes. Look at the low energy. Look at the droning on. Now, I didn't set up a debate with him yet. Next week might be difficult. I could probably do it Wednesday or Thursday, but it is, even though my birthday was July 4th, because of scheduling conflicts in my work, my wife's having a birthday party for me on the 20th. So unfortunately, like a day or two before that, we're going to be doing a lot of cleaning up around the house. But I could probably still squeeze a debate with Wick in Wednesday, Thursday. That probably won't be a problem as long as he's available. What would I say to moderates voting for Biden because they think Trump's anti-democracy? Well, that's sort of my belief is that the debate that the election, if it's Trump versus Biden, will be decided by this. People that in general don't buy the smoke that Biden's record is really good. Most of them will say, other than the COVID stuff, the country is in a better position under Trump than it was under Biden. And I understand people say, but COVID was Trump's fault and blah, 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 blah. We can have that debate. I'm just telling you that's how people are feeling. And polling backs that up. Most people say that they thought Trump was doing a good job now that they're being polled. And they think Biden's doing a bad job. So imagine those people, but that don't like Trump personally because they think he's personally odious or that he's a threat to democracy, etc. And so they're weighing those two options. This guy that I really don't like, who I think's extreme, who's a threat to democracy, versus this guy who I think his record's been pretty crappy and my bank account's doing much worse and I'm struggling to pay for groceries. Which one do I choose, right? And I think that, it's something I talked about during the debate. Trump didn't come off as too smug or too unlikable in his debate performance, which I think was good. He could have really spiked the ball on Biden more, being like, look at this guy. Look at this fucking guy. But he didn't do that, really. So I thought that was pretty good for him. I got a super chat from Roar. Thank you so much, EOD. $5. Let's fucking go. I'm glad you liked the meme I tagged you on an X. Yeah, it was great. D-Roar on X. Thanks for the content. Would love to see you do some stuff with Dave Smith. I moderated the debate between Andrew Wilson and Dave Smith. Reached out to Dave Smith immediately following that. Never heard a word back from him. I reached out to the guy that set up the debate between Andrew and Dave Smith and never heard a word back from him. I don't know what it is about me, but I almost have zero reach with anyone. I could literally be on live stream with someone and they're like, wow, you're great. Love to talk to you sometime. As soon as the live stream ends, I never get any response back from anyone, even if they seem to enjoy what I'm saying. So I don't know. He may have been mad after the debate. Maybe he thinks my moderation wasn't good. I tried to be right down the middle, but so anywho. But yeah, I would love to talk to Dave Smith sometime. Go ahead, Zen. Arrange it. I would love it. I would love to talk to Dave Smith. So maybe I am too combative. Maybe it's true. That could be true. Maybe I am too combative. Just a couple more things stylistically about tonight. Substantively, it's not that what Biden's... I'll be honest, it was difficult. My sister was here visiting, and I was hanging out with my sister and my son, so it was hard to hear every word. But substantively, I'm not going to say there was anything super egregious other than the gaffes I've already talked about what Biden said. It wasn't this, he's a master of substance, like you're hearing some Biden supporters trying to say. It wasn't like that. But it wasn't super egregious either. And it wasn't like he was just like, NATO, I don't know what that is. Like, he was saying stuff that sort of went along. He wasn't particularly directly answering questions. But I'm not going to be like the anti-Trump people and be like, this was the exact question about whatever. But let's be honest, just like the substantive issues of what Biden said in the debate became meaningless because it was all about the tone. It was all about how he looked. The same was true tonight. Visually, he doesn't look good. He sort of looks out to lunch, particularly once he's answering questions. And he has this tendency to just seem almost lifeless when he's talking. He just sort of drones on. And that's unfair because I know people. For example, I had this teacher in 8th grade, this history teacher, one of the most brilliant teachers I had as far as his knowledge. I thought he was great. And because I immediately recognized him as a smart guy, and he was talking about things I was a reasonably smart student. And a lot of times, unfortunately, I felt that the material was being taught down to us because it's like the lowest common denominator. So a lot of stuff I just checked out because I already knew it. This was a teacher that wasn't like that, but unfortunately, he talked in a monotone like this. And so even though I thought he was saying a lot of good things, most people weren't really listening to what he was saying, because the tone of his voice and the volume of his voice was so low that it was difficult for people to take an interest in what he was saying. That's sort of like Biden. Now, maybe it's a criticism that you could levy at me. Maybe I tend to drone on. And that's probably true. I need to work on brevity and shortening my answers. Now, last night on the panel, it's difficult to do that because when it's a panel where it's 4-on-1 and the moderator is basically chiming in as a debater against me as well, what happens is I have to answer like 3 people's stuff when it gets to me. And so, yeah, it does tend to droning on a little. But I'll be fair, even outside that scope, even on a show like tonight, I tend to drone on. Sometimes it's good for content, but oftentimes in a specific debate setting or a audience question setting, it's not the best thing. So I can certainly turn this criticism to myself. But I think I have an energy when I speak. There is something infectious about the way I talk, and I think you could say the same of a lot of other people. Like Trump, like him or hate him, when he talks, you listen. And even if he's dragging on, you're like, what is this guy going to say next? And Biden, it's just lifeless. And it wasn't always like that with Biden. If you go back and listen to when he was younger in the 90s, he had more energy. And I think that on one hand, if I'm steelmanning it, I could say it's not fair to judge him on that because you don't have to be a very passionate, high energy speaker in order to be a good president or to make good points or even to give a good speech. But the problem with Biden is because the actual real issues that he's facing, everything tonally about him and perceptually about him is now going to be put under a microscope. And you have only the people to blame that intentionally hid his cognitive decline for the past 4 years. Because they hid his decline, now that it's obvious to everyone, everyone's looking for signs of it everywhere, rightly or wrongly. What's up, Josh? Give my life to Christ, I have. But I'm not even a libertarian. I'm closer to libertarian than Christian National, though. Yeah, and that's not a bad point, Jimmy Beam. Your debate appearances mimic how you would sit with other world leaders. And we're hearing reports of that. That even world leaders that we would consider our allies are kind of raising eyebrows behind the scenes like, dude, like it wasn't Italy's prime minister that was rolling her eyes because Biden was late today. There's pictures of that. Like, if you're Zelensky, right, and you're like, okay, we basically need the United States to keep funding us to keep going in this war, and you saw that debate between Trump and Biden, does that inspire confidence in you that that's a forceful leader that's going to stand up to Vladimir Putin? So, I don't know. It was, that's why I think it's funny that Wick's comment was that it was a forceful delivery by Biden. No, it wasn't. You could say substantively it wasn't that bad and that he's clearly not someone that is a total incompetent. He was saying things that sort of showed some sort of knowledge in the topics he was talking about, but it was a bad performance. It was perceptually bad. The gaffes were particularly bad. It wasn't a particular hostile environment. And I'll admit to getting a slight prediction wrong. I had tweeted out before this press conference that maybe, just maybe, Biden and his supporters were going to get one small taste tonight of what it was like for Trump's team and Trump supporters, where every time he went in front of the press, it was incredibly hostile. But no, it was some pointed questions, but overall, a very tame environment. Very tame. And he didn't do well. It wasn't the worst. I'm not going to sit here and bullshit you. But it wasn't good. And I'm laughing. To me, it's Cope all around, baby. The needle didn't move. Good for me. Cope Week, Volume 3. Let's go into Week 3. July's Pride Month, or June's Pride Month, July's Cope Month. We'll just call it every year. Great. My birthday falls on Cope Month. Fantastic. So I'm happy to have seen the needle not move. That's basically anything specifically that you wanted me to talk about the press conference tonight. That's my ultimate thoughts on it. Newsmax reported they were banned from the press conference. That's funny. I thought Vice President Trump had a great night tonight. It's fantastic. I don't know. I thought about going through the entire debate that I had last night, just starting at the beginning and going through it. I don't know. Someone, I forget who the name of the person was, but someone clipped a portion of the debate. I thought they did a fantastic job in what they clipped. Maybe we'll play that. I know exactly where to go for that. It's only 5 minutes. Maybe we'll play that. But this is my indulgence. So Contemporary Compendium. Thank you so much. I'll put the link to this. Please give them their views, or give their channel a view. I don't know. I assume it's probably someone's clip of it was posted to the Crucible. Oh, Andrew would love that debate. I think he loves Brianna Wu. Rob, you think if you do those debates that those far... No. Mitch, they'll only admit that there's a mental problem with Biden if they're told by the people that are better than them that that's what they need to admit. They don't give a shit about the truth. They don't. They're lying blatantly about Biden's mental issues now. They lied about it for years. So no, they're not going to change just because I crushed them in a debate. They'll cope and say that, oh, Rob wasn't even on topic. So let's start with this little clip, and then we'll see how long I'm willing to go. And, you know. I think if Black Elk, my editor, who's fantastic, please check out the Black Elk on X. He's fantastic. He edits for me. Super awesome guy, and I'm very thankful. And I don't thank him enough. He's fantastic, right? But if he's listening, maybe I'll message him. I think it would be interesting to literally just clip everything I say and everything Brianna Wu said and just make that just 30 minutes of that, just to give a dichotomy between the two of us. But this is primarily going to be 5 minutes of focused on my thoughts vis-a-vis Brianna Wu's on a particular area of this. So it's going to start with my opening, and then we're going to quick cut to Brianna Wu. You'll get a little of a Conaboy in here, but I think this sums up last night pretty good. How long's Biden last? I don't know. The needle, I think that they'll get him out around the convention, though it's still 45% chance they don't. But anyways, let's go. Let's make sure the desktop, okay, we're good. Everyone seems to agree that trust in these institutions has declined significantly. The question is why, and we have a lot of interesting answers. I think I have the answer. It's because these institutions shouldn't be trusted. That's why trust is going down, because they've showed themselves to be corrupt or incompetent time and time again. Now, does this mean every institution in the country is corrupt? No. If I say that, for example, medical... real quick, thank you, David, for the super chat, $10. Bro, I'm sorry I can't watch the rest, because I started a new job as an electrician. That is awesome, man. Blue collar work this week, but look forward to watching the rest tomorrow. Have a good night, man. Thanks for being real. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Making that good electrician money. Fantastic job. Institutions have showed corruption or incompetence. Does that mean that you shouldn't trust Tylenol or you shouldn't go to the doctor? No, that's not what I'm saying. But it is clear that many of these institutions have personal motivations or motivations that benefit themselves. That means that they're operating outside the scope of what we expect, such as the medical industry, the media, our government institutions, academia, cultural institutions such as Hollywood, corporate institutions such as algorithms on social media, etc. These all amped up, I agree with Parallax, in 2016, though they existed before. Remember Romney's binders full of women, and he was going to enslave black people. I think that you could see that the media is almost always entirely skewed one way, and in my lifetime they have become evident that they are no longer journalists, they're just propagandists, and the left is starting to see that, particularly people like Wick, who I see on social media.
Let me give you a really good example. When the Iraq War was going on, I protested that to the point that I ended up on the terrorist watch list. Bush had a whole scandal back then about putting war protesters on the terrorist watch list, and every time I tried to fly, it was a nightmare.
I don't know if that's true, so let's pause here. It could entirely be true that she was put on a terror watch list. I will say, from what my interactions with Brianna have been, she seems to want to play the victim everywhere. So it's always about her story. I'm the victim. I was on a terror watch list. I don't know if it's true or not. It could very well be true. I don't know. I'll say this, though. All the more reason to be skeptical of her position now, because what she's saying is the system was so corrupt because I merely protested what I saw as an egregious action by some of these institutions, the Iraq War, that I was then erroneously put on a terror watch list. And that's a bold claim. And that's a claim that would suggest a lot of warranted distrust from these institutions. And yet, watch how quickly she talks about her situation. And then the things that I would talk about can be hand-waved away because I'm a conspiracy theorist. So I want you to watch for that.
So I was very, very opposed to that. It's without a doubt we had weapons of mass destruction that did not exist, and that was the reason we went to war. We focused a lot on that, and because of that, we lost a lot of trust in the CIA, our various, intelligence apparatuses, and also our military. Well, I do disagree with the conclusions Rob is coming to. I understand why he would feel that way, because there is a conservative media apparatus that exists to feed conspiracy theories nonstop, and there are a lot of people on the right and the left that are very vulnerable to this. This is part of the human condition. It's why RFK has so much traction with his anti-vax nonsense.
So, okay, did you hear what she said there? And so one of the things that you'll see, Brianna doesn't have a lot on specifics. She'll rely on rhetorical tricks to try to sound magnanimous, like she's making a good point. So one of the things she'll try to do is sort of, oh, I will criticize those on my side and those on the other side, and we need to come together, right? And so, so she gives this sort of backhanded, oh, I see where Rob's coming from. I see, because he's been duped by right-wing media to believe conspiracy theories, just like RFK when it comes to vaccines on my side, right? And so what she's doing is saying that I'm clearly someone who, she said, people that are susceptible. So I'm a person that's susceptible to just believing these nonsense conspiracy theories. That's not talking substantively. Now, she just got done espousing a conspiracy theory herself, that we were lied to get into the Iraq war, and her protesting of that led to her being on a terror watch list. Now, that's a conspiracy theory. It may well be true, but if I was to just say, bullshit, conspiracy theory, shut your mouth, the Iraq war was justified, she would say that's ridiculous. But notice how the standard's different. And you'll see, now, what I'm going to say here is like, well, once it's easy to make those sorts of claims, once the establishment institutions are on your side, now all of a sudden, the very things that you were distrusting of and the tactics they used just calling you a conspiracy theorist, now all of a sudden you embrace those same tactics. So if I sided with Bush and called you a conspiracy theorist, you would have said that's terrible. You're not talking specifics. I want to talk specifically about the Iraq war and WMDs, etc. And I said, it's all bullshit conspiracy theories. You're promoting left-wing media conspiracy theories. You're the type of person that's susceptible to that. She would say that's nonsense, but that's exactly what she'll do because now those institutions are on her side. Now, the next thing I want you to watch here, I would be remiss if I didn't point out our friend Econoboy, who's going to try to seem even more magnanimous and like he's even more centrist than Brianna here. Watch how he tries to gaslight people when I correctly articulate what Brianna just said, and him saying, no one said that. So let's go back real quick and see what Brianna was saying here.
Left that are very vulnerable to this. Conservative feed is coming to. I understand why he would feel that way because there is a conservative media apparatus that exists to feed conspiracy theories nonstop, and there are a lot of people on the right and the left that are very vulnerable to this.
So she makes herself seem better than me. She says she understands why I would feel this way and be distrusting because there are conservative media apparatuses that feed conspiracy theories to people that are vulnerable, like me. That's who she's talking about. And then she says, and people like RFK. That's what she's going to say, right? That's what she says. Now watch what Econoboy is going to say here coming up.
Part of the human condition. It's why RFK has so much traction with his anti-vax nonsense.
So what you see here is that it's easy to just wave things away as a conspiracy theory and say that, all of this distrust is just hyped up misinformation from right-wing sources calling it. It's easy to make those claims when the very institutions that you're defending are defending sort of your...
Rob.
That's not what any of us said. Let's hear what I said again. Theory and say that all of this distrust is just hyped up misinformation from right-wing sources calling it. It's easy to make those claims when the very institutions that you're defending are defending sort of your...
Rob.
So Econoboy just blatantly lies here. That's exactly what Brianna said. Brianna said she understands why people like me are distrusting because right-wing conservative media outlets are spreading conspiracy theories to people that are susceptible, like me. And so when I say it's easy to say that, Econoboy says, that's not what anyone's saying. So he's lying. Either he wasn't listening or he's lying and gaslighting his audience. And I think it's the latter. And he ought to be embarrassed. But to indulge him, I'm going to say, fine, then Brianna, can you explain what you were saying? You'll see. That's
Come on.
Okay, Econoboy, I'll say my piece. I'll say my piece. Brianna, did you say that there was a conspiracy theories that are being promulgated by right-wing media sources? Did you say that?
I don't want to get into this with you, Rob, today, because what's going to happen is we're going to go down a rabbit hole in this whole panel.
Now, did you see how Econoboy laughs? So, I'll leave her finish and then I'll...
All that's about structural distrust is going to be like adjudicating a bunch of...
No, that's not what's happening, Brianna. I'll explain what happened. I feel that I accurately...
Hey, okay, one at a time. All of you will stop. All of you will stop, and we will go one at a time. Finish your thought, Brianna, very quickly, and then we'll go back.
Of course. What I don't want to do today is to start going through a system where we adjudicate a bunch of random conspiracy theories. My point, which I said, is this exists on the right and the left. RFK has been pushing vaccine conspiracies to California moms for a long time. This also exists on the right. It is a human nature phenomenon.
Okay. So that's the part. And then I go on to give my spiel. So that's the beginning of the debate. That's shortly after opening statement. So here's what happens. I'm prepared to go in this debate, which was sold to me. Wick's title for the video for his debate. Let's see if I can find this real quick. On his team, Wick's title is, "Are our institutions broken? Why do so few Americans trust them?" And apparently, I was later told that it was off topic to talk about specific examples of when our institutions have been wrong. So the topic of, are our institutions broken? Why don't people trust them? Me saying, here's how they're broken and why people don't trust. They're like, no, that's off topic. That's what their argument be. That's how bad they got blown out in this debate. That's how low they were forced to go. But anyways, right at the beginning here, what happens is Brianna's setting the stage. She's gaslighting all of the people that are predisposed to believing her and the lefties on this panel. And what she's going to say is, Rob's not a bad guy. He's just vulnerable. And he believes conspiracy theories pushed by conservative media that even left-wingers sometimes too, like RFK, fall victim to. And that's where Rob's coming from. So then when I say something later, like I would say, for example, the medical professionals that told us that masks don't work, don't worry about it. And then later, 2 weeks later, said, never mind, we lied to you. But Brianna could come back. No matter what I say, she could say, see, I told you. Poor simpleton Rob here. He's just falling for those conspiracy theories again. And I'll be like, well, let's talk about this specific thing. I'm not interested in talking specifics. That's not what I'm here for. It's just poor Rob. He believes these conspiracy theories. And then if I push back, it's, Rob's too aggressive. It's too aggressive. So I see what the attempt's going to be. This is right at the beginning of the debate. The conspiracy theories. And so I say, my response is going to be, it's easy to say that when the institutions are on your side. Thank you so much, Gizmo. So for example, when you disagreed with the institutions, you would have found it outrageous if you would have said, I want to talk about this specific thing where I think we're being lied to by the institutions into this war. I think it's a big issue. I want to talk about the Iraq war. And if everyone in power just said, no, that's a conspiracy theory, we're not listening to you, you would say, outrageous. But then as soon as those same institutions agree with you on whatever situation you want to talk about, and someone in a similar position to you once were saying, I want to talk about this issue, I think that we're being lied to again, you say, it's a conspiracy theory. You're a simpleton. You're susceptible to conspiracy theories. And that's the point I'm going to try to make. But then the another lefty on the panel, Boy, jumps in and says, no one said that, Rob. No one said that. But that's exactly what she said. So think of the position I'm in. The audience has been gaslit. I'm in a debate where it's 4-on-1 against me. The moderator is then going to probably talk as much as, if not more, than all of the left-wing panels that are the 4-on-1 against me. So it's effectively a 5-on-1, which is fine by me. I don't give a shit. And they start off, before we get into any specific issues on the topic of, are these institutions broken? Why don't people distrust them? They start off right out of the gate by being like, well, it's all conspiracy theories. We don't want to talk about the specifics. So and instantly I try to push back on that rhetoric, another person steps in and says, no one said that. So that's already frustrating enough. It's like, what? That's clearly what she said. But to circumvent all of that, I say, Brianna, didn't you say that conservative media outlets or right-wing media outlets push these conspiracy theories? And what does she say? I'm not going to get into it. What do you mean you're not going to get into? It's not a debate because she's like, I don't want to get into this rabbit hole. We're not even at the rabbit hole. We're literally at the as surface level as we could get. You made an overarching claim about sort of the framework for how this debate will go. I said, here's her framework and why it's a problem. Someone else said, no one said that framework. I say, yes, they did. Isn't that true, Brianna, that you said this? And you say, I'm refusing to answer. How can you have an honest debate with people like this? Saying something, I respond, another person says, no one said that. I said, yes, didn't you say that? I refuse to answer if I said that. No, I don't think there was any right-wingers. That's basically, in a nutshell, what that whole debate was. And what I would be interested in is, I will admit that I expound on things, maybe in a manner more than people would like. Could be a true criticism, fair enough. But most of the things I talked about at length were things that were directly addressed by the other people. For example, Brianna brings up the Iraq War. Great. That's a great starting point. We're trying to find reasons that people would distrust our institutions. Now, the lefties right now, because all of these institutions at least pay lip service to sort of the democratic causes, they're going to support those institutions. Just like a lot of conservatives during the Iraq War, almost all Bush supporters said, no, I favor the Iraq War. I don't see the problem. Freedom fries, baby. Same thing. When it's your side doing it, there's less of a chance of you calling it out. I get that. I try to do a good job myself, but I understand that we're all susceptible to bias. So, if you're trying to say, let me explain my worldview of my distrust of these institutions, haven't there been times when you've massively distrusted these institutions? And Brianna could say, yeah, like the Iraq War. In fact, I was put on a terror watch list. And I would say, yeah, you see what I mean? Similar things are happening today. You see, it's sort of trying to explain to people that disagree with you why you come to the conclusions you come to. That's the point. And so, for example, if I say, yes, now you can understand why people may have been distrusting of a lot of the rhetoric around COVID. For example, when we were told if you go to a Trump rally, you could catch and spread COVID. But if you go to the Black Lives Matter protest, you can't. That was bullshit. Do you understand why people would say, wait a minute, so I have to stay home, but the people politically opposed to me could go out and do what they want? The churches have to be closed down, but the casinos and strip clubs could be open? You start to see why people were like, wait a minute, this sounds like bullshit. Just like you, like, wait, I got put in a terror watch list because I was critical of the Iraq War. You see? You see how that works? But she can't even engage on that level. She just has to say, no. Let me preempt any specifics you'll talk about by saying they're all conspiracy theories. All of them are conspiracy theories. And then when I say, that's sort of a ridiculous way to look at things, because just because they're agreeing with you now doesn't mean my criticisms of these institutions are because I'm a conspiracy theorist that should be hand-waved away. And Econo Boy's like, but she didn't say that. Yes, she did. And then the mere base level that you need in a debate is an agreement on what the people are saying right there. If I say, I think Trump was a good president, and Aircraft Sparky says, I disagree, Rob. I think at best he was average, but I wouldn't say good. And here's a bunch of things that he said that he did that I don't like. Right? And all of a sudden, Blue Skittles there and says, Rob never said Trump was a good president. And Sparky's like, wait, what? Yeah, that's what, Rob, didn't you say Trump was a good president? And I said, I refuse to answer that, Sparky. I'm not going to get into this with you. Everyone watching would be like, wait, what? What the fuck is that? How could you even have a debate then? If you won't explain what you just said 10 seconds ago, what's the point of this debate? It's laughable. And they would never accept me doing the same. Like, for example, if I would have said, yeah, I think it was great that Trump said lock her up. They should have done it. Yep, that was a great thing. And then Parallax would have said, well, wait a minute. Didn't you just get done saying that you think we have to be careful about, for petty crimes, locking up politicians? And I said, no, I never said that. I never said that. And they'd say, yeah, you said that. I said, no, I'm not going to get into it with Parallax. That's ridiculous. I never said that. They'd be like, that's bullshit. But that's what they did. And then it proceeds that way the whole way through the debate. She brings up the Iraq War. I say, yeah, just like the military, you didn't trust them then. I feel the same way about them now with Libya and Afghanistan. We're not going to get into your ridiculous conspiracy theories. What conspiracy theory? Then you have Parallax, who I outlined. I'm like, here was the problem. We were told for 20 years by 17 generals that Afghanistan was going great. It was fantastic. Then it took 3 days to all fall apart. And Biden pulled out. And remember, without social media, everyone's lamenting social media. But without social media, we would have never known that when Biden bombed ISIS-K, it ended up being a translator and his family. We wouldn't have known that without social media. The mainstream media would have covered that up. And Parallax like, you're spreading misinformation. Okay, let's go for it. Where was the misinformation that I spread? Well, actually, Trump withdrew some troops too. How does that disprove anything? Does that disprove that we were told for 20 years by 17 generals that things were going pretty swimmingly? No, it doesn't disprove that. Does that disprove that Biden closed Bagram Air Base and pulled all of our troops up? No. Does that disprove that the Taliban allowed ISIS freed from that Bagram prison? No. Does that disprove that we relied on the Taliban for security? That's what Biden's team did? No, it doesn't disprove that. Does that disprove that ISIS then bombed and killed 13 service members and Afghani civilians? No, it doesn't disprove that. Does that disprove that Biden ordered a strike on ISIS-K and it ended up being a translator and his family? No, it doesn't disprove that. But somehow I spread misinformation because I didn't say Trump also pulled back troops. And he thinks that's some sort of win. Oh, my wife's on here. What's up, Courtney? And that's the way it went the whole debate. They'd say, oh, you're like Wick at one point got upset because I brought up Econoboy makes a point. Econoboy says, I think there's problems with the algorithm. I'm shocked. That's actually something I'd written down. Like, so you could see, I showed everyone my debate prep. 3 minutes before the debate started, I wrote down these things at the top. Institutions I wanted to criticize: government, intel, Congress and executive branch, military, media, medical, academia, Hollywood, ? I didn't know if I wanted to get into it, right? Then look what the last one I wrote was: algos, social. It's one of the things I wanted to talk about, algorithms. How sort of search engines, social media promote certain viewpoints and outright ban or shadow ban or demonetize. So when Econoboy was like, well, one of the things I think we should do is basically get rid of sort of certain types of algorithms, I piqued my interest. I was like, okay. I don't know how you do that. That's difficult. I don't think you could outlaw an algorithm. Now, there's arguably things you could do with Section 302 and giving these companies sort of special provisions. I think those should be taken away. Or is it 203? Whatever. I forget what it's called now. But yeah, I mean, maybe instead of treating them as platforms, you treat them as media and they don't get special protections. Or you treat them as in-kind campaign donations if they're going to be all on one side. But it's difficult to just outright ban an algorithm, but fair enough. So he brings this point up. And he's like, back before 2016, I like that. 230, that's it, Section 230. Yeah, I agree. How did that work? One of the reasons Trump won was sort of the meme magic of 2015. You had all of these right-wing firebrands that were getting immensely popular on YouTube. People like Milo Yiannopoulos and Sargon of Akkad. And many of them were severely turned down or diminished by the algorithms after 2015. And so I mentioned this. I'm like, it's interesting to hear Democrats say this. I agree. Things were better in 2015 when it came to those algorithms. And then it changed, and Mike Benz talks about it. That all of a sudden the free and open internet that our intel agencies praised because it helped start color revolutions around the world, whoops, it could be used back home with things like Brexit and Trump. Now they didn't like it. Now they're getting into the business of censoring and working with social media companies to downplay certain messaging. That's the game. That's how the game changed. And ultimately, who did that benefit? Democrats. And then there was a professor, Robert Epstein, that did this study that said as many as 16 million votes could have been shifted by Google's algorithm alone. And Wick flips shit on that. Oh, you just bring that up and blah, blah, blah. Well, first off, Wick, they don't want to talk about specifics. I'll be happy to go through that study if that's what people want to do. And second, how is this any different than fucking Econoboy bringing up algorithms? I'm just saying, yeah, there's a study to back up what Econoboy's suggesting here. And it was like that the whole debate. It was one of the worst moderation jobs I've seen because Wick I'm just going to come right out and say this. I am. Wick admits at the beginning of every stream he's paid by Progressive Victory. I don't know if Brianna Wu still works for Progressive Victory PAC, but at one point, she was one of the point people for hiring people for Progressive Victory PAC. And Wick saw that his side and Progressive Victory was getting fucking spanked last night. That's what happened. People that are paid thousands upon thousands of dollars to give political opinions were getting spanked by a guy who works 80 hours a fucking week at home healthcare, who's some dumb fucking redneck that spent his prep time watching his kid play in a bounce house before he came up here. That's what happened. The professional political class gets their ass kicked by me. That's what's going on. And Wick is the paid moderator. Oh, can't have that. That's what went on. So Wick had to jump in and get his ass kicked too. Now, I don't have a problem with it. By all means, jump in. To Wick's credit, he gave me ample time to respond eventually. That's to his credit. I will say that. And I still don't dislike Wick as a person, and he's more than fine. My rule is, as long as the moderation gives me time to respond, I'm okay with it. If the moderator wants to jump in and debate me as well, because his side's getting their ass kicked, bring it on. Fine by me. But I'm going to treat you like a debater and not a moderator. That's what I'm going to do, which I did. I had this argument with Cherry once. She was moderating a debate with me, and she kept jumping in saying, actually, that's been debunked. And I was like, no, it's not. And I told her straight up, if you want to fucking debate, let's debate. But then I'm not going to give you the reverence of a moderator. Fuck all that. If you're a debater, you're a debater. It's different. That's the truth. They got embarrassed. They got absolutely embarrassed. It was one of the worst performances for a whole panel that I've ever seen. And let me explain this. And that's not necessarily true, because I've been on panels on like Prime K's show and Dylan Burns' show where there were groups of people, not just one person, but groups of people that were saying things that were so stupid you could hardly believe it. Like, I specifically remember, you remember that video I showed you? I've showed it many times on here, where I'm like pissed off and I'm just talking about how I'm so sick and tired of all the arguments that I'm hearing. And, you know, this was in the height of COVID and shit. I remember that week, I did a panel on Dylan Burns' show, and one of the topics was, I think it was Dylan's show, one of the topics was, should we lower the voting age? And there were people that were like, yeah, we should lower it to 16. And there was someone on that panel, I'm not making this up, some lefty that was like, there should be no minimum voting age. Infants should be allowed to vote. And I was like, but they can't. If an infant fills out a ballot, you understand completely that someone else filled out that ballot. Nope. That's just stupid of a level that's like, oh. Like, why am I wasting my time? You know, when I did the debate with Polly People on the Crucible, the second debate, where literally, to my knowledge, it's the only time Andrew Wilson stopped a debate and was just like, this is such a massacre, it can't continue. It was that bad. I would literally be like, well, here's a study. Let's look at this. And she literally was incapable of comprehending, to the point where it was like, I'm just looking at Andrew like, I don't know what to say. It's almost like she's speaking a different language. She can't understand what I'm saying. And Andrew was like, that's it. Throw in the towel. It's not worth anyone's time anymore. Like, that shit happens. But for a panel of people that are above that, people like Wick, that's being paid by Progressive Victory, and Brianna, who at one point was paid by Progressive Victory. Econoboy, who's not a fucking idiot. He's not. Econoboy's a smart guy. Parallact and Eldrazi, I don't know as well. But they're not at the level of like, oh, by the way, I think toddlers should vote. Like, it's not that stupid. For a group of people that meet that certain threshold where you're like, okay, these are people competent to at least pontificate on political matters, I don't know that I've ever seen an entire panel that bad. And the irony is, they're going to say the same thing. They're going to say, Rob ruined the panel. That's what they're going to say. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Then they literally were forced at one point in the debate to say, no, Rob, when you're talking specifics on when these institutions have been wrong or corrupt, that's off topic. Because the topic is, Why do people think our institutions are wrong or corrupt? And why are they broken? That's the level of gaslighting that they were trying to accomplish. We don't want to talk about that. They didn't want to talk about that from the beginning. They didn't want to talk about the specifics. And they kept gaslighting again, saying, no, Rob, we agree with you. They don't agree. What they were saying was, this is basically if I'm trying to steelman their position, which they're only making because they're afraid to debate me on specifics. The position they're going for is, listen, of course, every institution has been unethical at times and has been incorrect at times. So what do we do going forward to try to shore that up? And what's the big suggestions that you got from them? Well, Econoboy says, you know what we need? More socialist policies. Great New Deal. What? That'll solve people's distrust in the media if we give more welfare. What? What's Brianna's big suggestion? State-ran media. We need more NPRs. What? I'm saying we can't even get to the solution phase if we can't correctly identify what the problem is. That's the issue. And identifying the problem, ironically, solves 50%, if not more, of the issue. For example, if everyone in the country would wake up tomorrow and understand that the people that they traditionally rely on to news, whether it be Fox or MSNBC or the New York Times or Stephen Colbert, was fucking corrupt and incompetent in their coverage of COVID or Russiagate or the Hunter Biden laptop, then they would just say, we're not going to listen to those people. Then the power that those people exert in the media would go away, which solves a lot of the problem with that particular institution, which then goes a long way to solving problems with other institutions. Because the irony is, when the media brags about the fourth estate and how important the media is, they're right. The media traditionally has been very important to holding institutions like government accountable. But when they're on the same team being propagandist and corrupt, then the American people lose that tool. So if we start to take down trust in the media where people no longer look to them, that solves a big part of that problem. But they just hand wave it away and say, we agree with you. You don't agree with me. You're doing everything you can to not correctly identify the problem. We're having a disagreement. And the disagreement's evident in many points. For example, Brianna says Iraq war. I say, okay, yeah, I think we were lied about that. And I think they lied about Libya. And I don't think like Brianna said, because Brianna was like, oh, they lied about the Iraq war. And then they created a new agency and it solved a lot of the problems. No, it did not solve a lot of the problems. The problems persist. The Department of Homeland Security has many problems itself. In fact, part of the problem of being on a terror watch list that she's claiming probably came from the Department of Homeland Security. So the idea that, like, she's saying there was a problem and we've largely solved it. My argument is, you're right that there was a problem and that problem has persisted. That's directly opposed to each other. But instead of talking specifics, they're like, no, we just agree with you. But you don't. You don't agree. You're just saying you agree because you're desperate to not talk about the actual problems. Because it turns out you've supported those problems because they've benefited your side. That's the truth. And that leads to other ridiculous moments in the debate. Brianna says, we'll see if I can bring this up. I'm on Wick stream. I don't give a shit. It seems evident from their emails they were intentionally subverting Freedom of Information Act request and the way that they were communicating. That's something that could be.
Go ahead. On board. I think that badly, but the problem.
I want to address this because
Instagram was just fine.
You'll see a switch.
So it doesn't get personal. I'm going to use my own side as an example here. Something I've talked about a lot lately is trying to steer the trans movement back to a more science-based approach, lean into victimhood narratives on January 6th. Litigate Hillary Clinton, right? Then you're trying to relitigate Burisma. And it's like, you spend so much time on defense if you agree to their internet back in the dial-up modem days. They're on the public policy that we can agree on. I think that's how you heal institutions.
I'm going to let Rob respond, but a little housekeeping first. After
of digging deeper, and you shouldn't trust the institutional narrative, particularly when they lie so blatantly about things like Biden's cognitive health, about things surrounding the pandemic, etc., which we can get into those specifics. Now, you can see that this entire panel that we're supposed to be talking about, are these institutions trustworthy and what should we do about it? Everyone is gung-ho to not talk about the specifics as to whether or not these institutions are trustworthy, instead to talk about anything else, potential solutions, etc. On that note, Econoboy, about the algorithm, I don't disagree with you. I think that algorithms are a huge problem. I don't know if 2015 is the exact way. 2015 style trustworthy in many ways. Mike Benz talks about me specifically. I'll turn the criticism on her. She says that it's people like me.
Not addressing it.
That's fine, Brianna. You don't have to address it. You haven't addressed
No, I'm
anything
saying
in
you're
this
not
debate.
addressing anything I said directly. You're just going to flip it on me. Here we go. Fire hose.
Progressive Victory, thank you for the super chat. Says, my apologies for the treatment you received yesterday. I accidentally upped my estrogen dosage. Brianna Wu, thank you, Brianna. Thanks for the $5. Right.
Let's go, boys.
What she's trying to do is gaslight. So now, I don't know if this is I was looking for the part where her solution was NPR. Like, so I bring up NPR, and she's like, because she's like, I think part of the solution is actually having state-funded media. That's something she's gonna say, and I'm like, well, here's problems I have with NPR. And the very first thing we'll get to it. The very first thing she says is like, well, that's not on topic. How is that not on topic? That's literally what your solution is. I'm directly criticizing your solution. Now, someone mentioned this earlier, like early, we'll get back to it here in a second. Early in the debate, you can see, like, when I'm talking, Brianna's just turn. Rob's just a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not going to engage or listen to anything he says. And then, moaning, constant interrupting when I'm trying to talk. You'll see that here. Even here, she makes this point, oh, Rob's a conspiracy theorist, and he's just going to want to talk about Burisma or whatever, and I'm not getting in those rabbit holes. So I'm like, well, I'll turn the question out, because what I'm going to try to say is, when it comes to solutions, one of the first steps to, if we're saying, why are people distrusting of institutions like the media? Right? And Brianna, part of her answer is, it's because people like Rob are vulnerable and spread misinformation and conspiracy theorists. Yes, that exact mentality is why there's such a distrust of these institutions, because that's the exact take that they've taken. Shut your mouth. This is disinformation. Censor that. You're wrong. Right. That's one of the reasons these institutions are broken. She's literally performing the very rhetoric that's leading to the distrust in institutions. That's literally what's happening. And then when I respond to that, they're like, that's off topic. What's the solution? But just, now watch how she just constantly interrupts. Now, I will say something. It is an effective strategy to interrupt constantly, because it is very difficult, particularly in a panel like this, where it's 4-on-1, 5-on-1, and there's going to be 2 or 3, and it's got to work this way. There's no getting around it when it's like this. There's going to be times where they speak one after another. And it's hard to keep all of your thoughts lined up, like, okay, this person said this, I want to respond to that. This person said this, I want to respond to that. It's hard enough to do that. But when you try to do that and someone keeps interrupting you, particularly, like, there's different types of interruptions. There's interruptions like, wait a minute, are you saying this? And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying. That's one type of interruption. But then there's interruptions like you'll see Brianna do, or that you saw Econoboy do. Econoboy interrupted me to be like, that's not what anyone said. Yes, of course it is. Then it derails what I was going to say, where I have to go back, didn't you say this? Then they say, I'm not going to tell you whether I said it or not. It's just childishness, because they know they can't win the substantive argument. So anyways, let's go back a little here. With me specifically, I'll turn the criticism on her. She says that it's people like me.
Not addressing it.
That's fine. Not addressing it. So she hasn't even heard what I'm going to say yet, and she's already saying that I'm not addressing. Brianna, you don't have to address it. You haven't addressed anything.
No, I'm saying you're not addressing anything I said directly. You're just going to flip it on me. Here we go. Fire hose time, y'all.
Right.
Let's go, boys.
What she's trying to do is gaslight. So Brianna can't keep up on the specifics, because it's not really a left-right issue. Now, again, I sat here patiently while you all talked at great length. I've only interrupted once or twice, and it was to ask a pertinent, specific question, not to moan on and make faces like you do, Brianna. You started off this debate being antagonistic to me, accusing me of being a conspiracy theorist, saying that things weren't... Anyways, you started off doing that, and then you seem to want to play the victim, which is something that you see quite frequently.
You're playing the victim right now, bro.
Which is
Your
something you see.
feelings are hurt. I'm so sorry I triggered you. I've been trying so hard to avoid it the whole time. I will triple down for you. I promise.
Which is something that you see is common with people like Brianna. They aren't capable of keeping up intellectually or with the specifics, so they have to use broad-reaching phrases like, you're a conspiracy theorist. Let's use the very example that she gave, talking about TERFs and talking about new literature that comes out describing medical procedures in the trans community. Imagine that Brianna said, well, actually, Rob, here's what the newest literature says, and I just say, that's all a conspiracy theory. I'm not interested in talking the specifics. Brianna would rightly say in that point of view, that's not responsive. You're not talking about the specifics. You're instead just attacking me and being dogmatic because you're not interested in the specifics, because you have an agenda that's pre-confirmed to what your beliefs are, and you don't want to hear anything that's antithetical to that. And that's exactly what Brianna's doing. The people that have called people like me conspiracy theories were wrong over and over and over again. They're wrong on COVID. They were wrong on Russiagate. They were wrong on Biden's cognitive decline. They gaslit you on these blatant things, particularly Biden's cognitive decline, and called people like me and millions of others that saw what Biden was becoming right in front of our eyes conspiracy theorists. Now they want to tell you, oh, forget about all that. You should still trust us. We're the calm, sensible
But
people.
you've been saying
These
that
people-
since 20.
Now you'll see Wick jump in and he'll start to make the arguments. And we can get to that if you want to, but I mean, do you see how Brianna carries herself? Now, I want to be honest. I'll never show the DMs or whatever, but I have talked about these DMs. After the last panel I was on that was very similar, it was me versus a bunch of people, Brianna Wu, Destiny, Dylan Burns. I was on this panel with Brianna, and Brianna couldn't keep up, and she played the same game. Her opening statement in that debate was saying, all conservatives are just stupid. Some of the dumbest people, these conservatives just crying for their team. That's her opening statement. Then after opening statements, she's the first one to speak. She repeats the same rhetoric about how we're stupid. And I throw it right back in her face. I'm like, you can't keep up on the specifics, so you just keep saying, we're stupid, we're conspiracy theorists. These are just all conspiracies. Rob's just here to talk. I don't have time to keep up with these conspiracies. Right. You don't have anything to say. And she ultimately, in that debate, did this tactic that's done, that you saw repeated in this debate, where they just say, we agree with you. Fine, we agree. Okay. So when I said, listen, the idea of going after Trump for classified documents by the same FBI that went after Hillary for this, and Hillary's team deleted subpoenaed evidence, and they decided to not charge those people with obstruction, but they're charging the people surrounding Trump with obstruction. And then, of course, their argument is always going to be, just because Hillary did something doesn't mean that Trump's not guilty of it. Right, but my criticism isn't Hillary, and it's not Trump. My criticism is the agencies themselves engaged in a two-tier system. That's my criticism. And so if you admit, yeah, Hillary's team did worse than what Trump's team did, but they let them get away with it, then that's an indictment of that institution, which is exactly what my criticism is. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, defend Trump no matter what. I'm saying there is a two-tier system, and that's a bigger threat than either Hillary or Trump. Well, I guess they should have just locked up Hillary then, too. That's fine. I'm fine with that. One, you're not fine with that. You're fine with it now because it doesn't mean that your side would lose power. You wouldn't have been fine with it at the time in 2016 because it would have meant that you were guaranteed to lose the 2016 election. So you wouldn't have been cool with it then. Now you could say, in retrospect, fine, they should have went after her. But second, if you believe that, then that speaks to exactly what I'm saying. Okay, my point is they should have went after Hillary for that, and they didn't, but instead they're going after Trump. So you admit there's a two-tier system. I'm not playing these conspiracy theory games. Right. So you pretended to agree with me, and now you're calling it a conspiracy theory again, once it shows that it vindicates the point that I'm making. And this is the game they play all the time. They can't keep up on specifics, so they hand wave away as a conspiracy theory. That's what happens. Now, there are people that are willing to go more into the details. Destiny will go in more details. But he's better than Brianna. Destiny will find all sorts of other excuses to justify the two-tier system. But Brianna's not capable of that. For someone who's paid as a political operative, I don't know that I've seen someone worse than Brianna Wu. What exactly is she bringing to the table? Maybe she's phenomenal on panels that I haven't seen, that I haven't been on with her. But in the two interactions I've had with her, she literally has done nothing. She just says, you're a conspiracy theorist. I'm not going to engage with you. Oh, I'm triggering you. I'm not engaging. Oh, yeah. Like, what the fuck is that? That's one thing for some random nobody left-wing streamer, but you're supposedly a serious paid political operative? You're shit. Hey, whoever's paying Brianna Wu, if you're listening, you're fucking pissing your money away. You understand that? She's dog shit. Like, absolute dog shit. She's not advancing the cause of your son. Maybe she's really good at knocking on doors. And maybe she's really good at being persuasive when she's not being challenged by someone. Maybe that's the case. And I'm certainly not advocating for Brianna to lose her job or anything like that. I don't give a shit about it. If left-wing pack wants to spend money on Brianna Wu instead of someone that's more effective, fine. But I mean, for God's sakes, just being totally honest, I don't see how she's moving the needle here. DEI hire? But anyways, after that last debate, when Brianna started off with it, and it was very similar shit to this stuff last night. I started off pretty calm. She starts saying that I'm susceptible to conspiracy theories. I say it's easy to say that. She raises the temperature. I raise the temperature a little back, no problem. And then she plays the victim. Oh, I just wanted to have a discussion, and Rob's on here and personal attacks, and what the fuck are you talking about? So the last panel I was on, after she started off calling us all morons and shit like this, then she takes to X. I just had to listen to conspiracy theories for 2 hours. I just wanted to have a civil conversation. And I'm like, if you wanted to have a civil conversation, why did you start off before anyone said anything saying how stupid we are? Oh, I triggered you. Oh, here we go. I triggered you. What the fuck are you talking about? I'm not triggered. I'm pointing out that it's clear that you didn't want to have a civil conversation. If I just say, hey, I want to have a polite conversation with my neighbor about mowing the grass, and I go over and I'm like, what the fuck, you lazy asshole? Why don't you ever mow your grass? And he goes, what the fuck did you just say to me, fatty? And I'm like, whoa, man, I just wanted to have a civil conversation. What's all this hostility? Wow, man, that's too much. Like, get the fuck out of here. I started it. Tainted Holy for the Super Chat 499 says they could have easily moved on if they would have just agreed to disagree with you and ask for solutions. Instead, they just said I was a conspiracy theory liar. Exactly. And so then that wasn't enough on it. I don't give a fuck. It wasn't enough. Then she has to message me DMs after I did a show with Destiny. Oh, Rob, I saw your show with Destiny, and it's clear that you could be civil. Why weren't you like that with me? I was like, because you started off calling me dumb. I reciprocated. Oh, okay, whatever. It's good. You're just a misogynist. Is that it? I won't say what I really think about that comment. Yep. My antagonism towards Brianna Wu is because I dislike women. That must be it. That must be it. Okay, sure. Good point, Brianna. Of course, got to be terms of service. Don't want to get in trouble, right? Yeah, delusions, yeah. Anyways, and then she messaged me again. Said she was boycotting panels I was on. I said, Brianna, I don't give a fuck. Like twice, months apart, she messaged me, want to get back to this? Could you apologize? I'm not fucking apologize for what? You were an asshole, I was an asshole back. Life goes on. Wick was an asshole last night to me, I was an asshole back. Life goes on. Wick's not DMing me like, hey man, I'm going to boycott you from panels if you don't apologize to me. I would be like, Wick, go fuck yourself. Fine. I'm better for your content. What's your show gonna be, Wick? What's your fucking show? If I wouldn't have been there last night, the original panel was gonna be Connor, Boy, Parallax, and Brianna. You would have had 4 people from Progressive Victory sitting around agreeing with each other. That's your fucking panel? It's one thing Andrew Wilson has right. They need me more than I need them. Because they don't got shit without someone like me. Now, I grant they would rather have someone like me that's not as talented so that they could just bully around. Because in the long run, it hurts them to keep bringing on one person that kicks all of their asses. But it is what it is. So, there we have it. It's hilarious. acts like a fucking it's over here on a computer, like... Why did I not go into my solutions after what you perceive as flaws? Because you can't get into solution if there's no agreement on what the flaws are. For example, if you said, I think the problem with your local police force is they're underfunded. And I said, I think the problem with the local police force is they're working for the mafia and they're intentionally helping criminals and going after people they perceive as harming the criminals. And you would say, okay, we're done talking about the problems. What are the potential solutions? How can we have any discussion on the solutions when we're that diametrically opposed on what the problem is? So I could talk at great length what the solutions are. And I started to. The solutions are different for each institution. For example, Eldrazi said throw people in jail. And I was like, well, you can't do that. Sure, there are certain crimes that you could throw people in jail for. But the crime of being distrustworthy, no. You can't throw Jake Tapper in jail because he sat there listening to Adam Schiff's bullshit about Russiagate. I can't be like, well, throw Jake Tapper in jail. That's clearly not the answer. I even said that about Dr. Fauci. I don't think that you could throw Dr. Fauci in jail for just saying bullshit to the American people. Now, if he lied under oath, that's a different question. Yes, I do think there are people in these institutions that have committed crimes, particularly in government institutions, such as lying under oath or weaponizing their institutions in potential ways that could be criminal, and they need to face some sort of consequence. And I even said that to Eldrazi when he said, no one talked about throwing people in jail. I said, right. I said, I agree with the spirit of what you're saying. There has to be accountability. So, for example, an organization like the media, what is the solution? Well, there's no governmental solution. I'm not going to suggest that the government comes in and says, well, we're going to ban CNN. Because I'm not an authoritarian like the left is that wants to ban Fox News and all this shit. Instead, the solution is to ridicule them, to destroy any last vestige of their credibility. That's the solution. If people voluntarily choose to say, these people are fucking clowns, we're not going to listen to anything they say, then that solves the problem. That's what you do. You change the culture. I don't need to weaponize the government to go after my opponents. I don't need the government to provide incentives. Oh, the government should pay Fox News. The government should pay the New York Times like Brianna wants to. Bullshit. No, there isn't a role for the government in this problem. Now, the government should stop colluding with media companies. They should stop colluding with social media to censor or to promulgate stories that they want. But I don't think there's a role for locking up the media. The role is to correctly, not erroneously, but to correctly call out that they are propagandists, that they are not interested in being journalists, and that people should be distrusting of them, which will lead to sort of more singular journalism, citizen-type journalism, more of like the Substack future, where people can go into business for themselves, like Michael Schellenberger or Matt T. Abbey. Let's say, I don't have to rely on being employed by a company who takes advertising dollars from Pfizer and then tells me, well, you can't write stories critical of Pfizer. That's where I see the solution going. But how can I get to that solution when literally the bulk of the problem, which is that these institutions are distrustworthy because they have hand-waved away the people that have called them out, when literally performatively in the debate, that's what's being done. When I say, here's one of the lies that they told, here's one of the corruption things they did, and what I'm told by everyone on the panel is, that's a ridiculous conspiracy theory. Right, you're the problem. Calling this out is the first step and most important step, accurately articulating what's going on. That solves the majority of the problem. It might shift where people get their hyper-individualized news, but there's a better chance of that news being correct without the government's boot on or the government pushing these companies that they're in bed with. What would your solution, Dustin Babola, be? Here's solutions that were offered. Econoboy thinks we just need to give welfare to everyone. You don't trust the media. How do you solve that? Well, if we just gave more money to poor people, that would solve it. I don't even have to articulate how stupid that is. Brianna's suggestion is if we just had more state-ran media. So I'm talking about a collusion between the media being propagandists for people running our government. Brianna's allegedly saying, I agree with you, Rob, they're corrupt. That's what she claims. And then says, you know what the solution would be? Have the government directly pay the media. Right. Hold people accountable, right. What happens when people are held accountable? Well, if they hold the New York Times accountable, then people won't trust the New York Times. So where are people going to go? Well, they're going to go to more alternative types of media. Now, as I said, yes, of course, alternative media is going to have its problems as well. Free speech will always result in lies and misinformation. That's absolutely true. But there's a better chance of the truth being promoted if you have free speech than if you rely on media controlled by 4 major corporations that are basically in bed with government. If we think one of the central roles of the media is hold the truth to power, how can you do that if the media is ran by powerful people that are in bed with the powerful people in government? I saw some of that interview, TL. But how can I get to that solution when they're just like, your conspiracy theory, we're not going to listen to any. And this is something that they want to do. They want to change the conversation. And I hear this shit all the time. All the time I hear this shit. There was this right-wing guy I debated once. He was on a panel and he was talking a big fucking game on this panel. Boy, I'd love to debate you one-on-one. I said, okay, buddy, you got her. And we were talking about corruption and Russiagate and things like that. He was gung-ho. He's going to tell me. Talking shit in the panel. And I get that. Now, I don't even particularly mind that because I get it. Some of the panel's performative. It's like there's 8 people. You only get a couple seconds to talk. So you're going to say something spicy. That's cool. So this guy called me out. I said, okay, big boy, shoot your shot. I'll talk to you anytime. So he agrees to do this debate with me. We're going to talk about corruption of the FBI in particular. Okay. I start talking about Russiagate. I wish I remembered this guy's name. And right out of the gate, he's like, yeah, I agree with you on everything. You do? Yeah. I'm saying that basically our FBI engaged in a coup against Trump. Yeah, I agree with you. The part I disagree with you about, Rob, is should we disband the FBI? I think we should just have significant reforms. And I'm like, okay, I'll argue that, but you've already conceded 95% of what I'm concerned about. Which he doesn't believe it. He just bullshit. Because I could tell he didn't believe it. Because then he started asking another question. Well, who do you think the nominee should be? Who do you think the Republican nominee should be? What are you talking about? You just admitted that the most powerful law enforcement agency in the history of the world engaged in a fucking coup to take down the last Republican nominee. That's a bigger problem than, that's like saying your house is on fire. Yeah, I agree my house is on fire. What kind of wallpaper do you think I should get? Like, the fucking house is on fire. Why are you talking about wallpaper? And it's because the reason that you would even suggest something like that, it wasn't Alex Kirsch, no. The reason you would even suggest something like that is you fucking don't believe me. But you know you would get your ass kicked, so you want to reframe the debate. You want to get to something you're more comfortable with. Wick jumps in here and he makes an ass of himself. Again, here's a guy. Go back and watch. I mean, the other thing I wanted to bring up tonight, which I think is worth bringing up, I really do. Sometimes I can almost see the future. When the debate happened, the big debate, what was everyone talking about? 95% of the left-wingers were just coping and ooh. 95% of the right-wingers were like, ah ha ha, Biden's destroyed, ha ha ha. What did I say? What was my take? What was the central take that I said, this is the biggest thing to take away from tonight? Let's go to the tape, shall we? Look at this bald asshole. Know it. The intel agencies know it. The academics know it. They all knew. All of... I don't know what I could bring to the table here that any of you that watched couldn't come up with yourself. I'll analyze the debate as a professional debate person. No, that's a joke. I'm no longer a professional. I was a collegiate debater and then a debate judge and coach for 8 years. So maybe more than the average person, I've been involved in debates and I continue to do debates. But I think with a debate like this, a novice is equally as qualified and their opinion is equally as important as someone who's done debates, because this isn't a game. It's whoever an individual thinks won. So I'll give my take on what I saw in the debate, some of the specific high points and things like that. But I think that an overview is necessary to give my overview points on this. Here's my let's assume that all of you saw the debate. We'll start with that. If there are those that haven't seen, we'll get to that. What is there to say? I could sit here and talk about how obvious the mental decline that Joe Biden has. And that is the story. But to me, there's a bigger story here. Everybody knew this for 4 years. Everybody knew it. Everybody knew it. CNN knew it. Biden's family knew it. Everyone in the Biden administration knew it. The generals know it. The intel agencies know it. The academics know it. They all knew. All of the people that I've been debating since 2020 on Joe Biden, when I was like, this guy's clearly got dementia, he's clearly got cognitive decline, they knew it. The people like Merrick Garland that are being held in contempt for refusing to release the audio tapes of Biden's interview with special counsel Hur, they know it. They know what those tapes show. They know it. That's why they don't want the tapes out. Hur knew it. Robert Hur knew it. That was like, I'm afraid if we put this guy in the stand, he would just come across as a sympathetic, dementia-addled old man. He knew it. Everybody knows. We are the biggest country, government-wise, in the history of the world. We exist in a time where, for better or worse, the United States is still the most powerful country in the world. I think for better, obviously. We exist in a time of global economies, of potential world wars with world-ending weaponry. And the guy that's running the show doesn't know where the fuck he is at. And everybody knows it. And we all have to pretend that the emperor's wearing clothes. We have to pretend. We have to. Oh, what are you talking about? I don't see the... it's the old, they know they're lying, we know they're lying, they know we know they are lying, and yet still they lie. That's the story tonight. We just talked about this last night. What is the real separation between me and those that I disagree with? Is that I'm conservative and they're progressive or liberal? No. Is it that I'm for small government and they're for big government? Closer to that, but no. It is that I am a populist and that they are institutionalist. They trust the institutions and I don't. That is where I draw my line of who's on my side and who's not. Is it true that I'm right-wing? Yes. Is it true that I'm a Christian conservative? Absolutely. Do I have political beliefs that stem from that? Of course. But the majority of my political beliefs are how corrupt our institutions have become and that they control the show without the will of the people. In fact, they hold contempt for the people. And if tonight didn't show you that these people in these institutions and those that defended them have lied to you in the most blatant of ways, I don't know what else can. The only thing that you could put similar to it, and I was just talking to a journalist friend of mine, Todd Bartley, was Fetterman's debate with Oz, where it was evident right out of the gate, like, oh my God, all of the rumors were true, that Fetterman had this stroke and he's really bad, and he doesn't know where he's at half the time. He can't really speak. Remember there was a journalist that interviewed Fetterman, like from NBC or something, and was like, whoa, he was really out of it. And all the media attacked. How dare she say that? It was true. The only difference between Fetterman and Biden is Fetterman actually sounded more capable. And Biden has been in office for 4 years. And everybody knows this. Everybody knows there's a reason he doesn't do press conferences off the cuff. Everybody knows when they're telling us, trust us, behind the scenes, Biden's sharp as a tack. We find it outrageous, these attacks on his cognitive ability. They all know that's bullshit. That's why they keep him hidden. That's why they feed the press questions to ask Biden. They knew it. David says they're going to replace Biden as nominee. The only question is who. I agree. I think he'll be replaced. Absolutely. Which is why tonight ultimately is probably a loss for Donald Trump, which we'll get to. Latest tweet from NBC, Biden's performance sends Dems into panic. Is that true? Jamal Bowman, yeah. And we'll talk about, well, they'll switch. You know, and who's going to be the new person and blah, 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 blah. But the same people that lied to you for 4 years, there's no signs of cognitive decline with Biden. Now all of a sudden, when push comes to shove, what do I say all the time? I just talked about this last night. When you're on the side of these institutions, you're only on their side as long as you're useful to them. As soon as you're not, they'll cut and run. So there'll be those tonight that'll be trying to gaslight you. No, actually, Biden's performance was great. One of the greatest debate performances we've ever seen. There will be those. You'll have the Keith Olbermanns and folks like that that'll say that stuff. That's right. That's my guess how it'll go. Guess who farted? There'll be a medical issue that just sprung. So I don't know. At some point I say there, the important takeaway, the most important takeaway is that eventually we'll forget about this debate and we'll be 3 months on and Biden will or won't be the nominee. And there'll be some other scandal or some other talking point of the day or narrative of the day. And we'll be involved in that. And we'll be saying, oh, what about this? And even I will be. I'll be caught up in that as well. But what we should never forget what that debate showed was the same people that will be pontificating then, the same people if Kamala Harris becomes the nominee that's going to be telling you how great she is, are the people that intentionally lied to you about Biden's mental health for 4 years. It's the exact same people. It's not that all of a sudden they woke up and now they're telling the truth. No, they're continuing to lie. The truth is irrelevant to them. All that they're interested in is maintaining power. And if the truth helps them maintain power, they'll tell the truth. If it hurts them maintaining power, then they'll lie. So when you hear them saying Trump's a threat to democracy, they're full of shit. They're full of shit. And I wanted to play that clip to go hand in hand with that debate last night. What was the debate last night? Should we have, why is there distrust in these institutions? Could I make it any clearer? Right then, right after that debate, I started filming that 5 minutes after Biden's debate with Trump ended. And I said, what separates me from the people I disagree with? Is it that I'm a right winger and they're a left winger? No. Is it for I'm small government and they're big government? Not necessarily. It's that I don't trust these institutions and they do and defend them. Now, if that's not indicative of that debate that we were going over that I had last night with the Progressive Victory PAC panel, I don't know what else is. Why do you think that they wanted so much to not talk specifics about the incompetence and the corruption of these institutions? Because they are institutionalists. That's why. Question laid out before them. Why are people distrusting of these institutions? And you heard their opening statements. You know what they didn't say? Because the institutions have not earned our trust. Because they have lied. Because they are incompetent. It's surreal. And they want to desperately avoid talking about it. Now, yes, is it true that I'm capable of talking for probably at least 16 hours on corruption within various institutions, the media? One of the things I was ready to talk about. It doesn't even have to be political. What was the name? Why can I never remember this guy's name? I always want to say Rowan Atkinson's, but it's not that. It's Rowan something. The guy that broke the story about it, Harvey Weinstein. Isn't it Rowan something? Rowan Farrow. Now, everyone in the media and in Hollywood knew the allegations about Harvey Weinstein. There were jokes on it in shows like Family Guy and other movies. They joked about Harvey Weinstein. Everybody knew it. Everyone. And yet they still all worked for Harvey Weinstein. They still praised him when they were getting their awards. The media still didn't cover it. Remember there was that clip of that woman that the cameras that she thought was off at like CBS or something. She was like, shit. This journalist, she was like, I had this story years ago and they didn't leave me cover it. They didn't leave me. And then Rowan Atkinson, yeah, Mr. Bean broke it down. Ronan Farrow. They all knew it. They all knew. And then once Ronan Farrow and more importantly, Rose McGowan came out and started speaking about it, then they were like, oh my, what a bad man. But they all knew. Now, why should we trust the media on that? Why should we trust Hollywood on the media in that particular situation? Don't take me. To hell with me. Why should someone who claims to have been a victim of sexual assault and who has, regardless of what you think of her, been very vocal in speaking up for women that have been victims of sexual assault, Rose McGowan, why should Rose McGowan trust CBS? Or the New York Times, or the Hollywood Actors Guild, or any of the people in Hollywood? She's very distrusting of them. Why? Because she's like, I've been saying this shit forever. Women have been coming forward forever. Everyone knew about this, but you covered it up. What would Brianna Wu say to Rose McGowan if that was the topic? In this particular institution, on Hollywood and media, why don't people trust them? And Rose McGowan says, well, look at the Harvey Weinstein situation. Would Brianna Wu say, that's a conspiracy theory, and low information people like you are susceptible to right-wing conspiracy theories? Is that what Brianna Wu would say? Let's talk about solutions, Rose. We don't want to go down the rabbit hole of you explaining the specifics on how they were corrupt. Fuck you. That would be Rose McGowan's answer. And she would be right to say it. Yeah, Corey Feldman, another one that's been saying that stuff. That's why people don't trust the media. That is true. The news anchor was mad she didn't get the praise, not that Weinstein was walking free. Exactly. That's the frustration of that panel. They don't want to talk about it because it directly implicates their core belief. Their core belief stems from a hatred of Donald Trump. But that stems for a trusting in the institutions that have trained them to hate Donald Trump. That's why I say all the time, the cult against Trump is worse than the cult for Trump. There are certainly people in a cult for Trump. I won't deny that. But the cult against him is worse. That's how you could take someone like Counterpoint, who's a smart dude, who I watched for years, go through how the FBI was covering up for the Biden crime family. And all of a sudden, he gets paid by Progressive Victory PAC. And he's like, you know what? Despite all these FBI and IRS whistleblowers coming out that I've covered extensively on how they were stymied in looking into how the corruption went the whole way up the Biden family tree, and they were never allowed to look into it. It's all good now because they charged Hunter Biden with a gun crime. What? All of a sudden, that's good enough? Are you kidding me? The one thing that I could have gave a shit less if Hunter Biden was charged with? How about improperly being a foreign lobbyist? How about crimes resulting to not paying taxes from getting money from the spy master of China? while his dad was VP and was working on China policy. How about that shit? And I said they don't want to bring those charges. Why? Because those charges directly implicate potential wrongdoing by Joe Biden. Even if not criminal wrongdoing, moral wrongdoing. And they don't want to do that. So they tried to cover up completely for Hunter Biden. And then because of these whistleblowers and a judge, and this sweetheart plea deal fell through, they had to charge him with something. And Connor knows this, but he's like, well, that's okay. Why? Because Connor's core belief is, I fucking hate Trump. And many of these people come to that belief, I don't know if this is true of Connor, because they're institutionalist. So how can Brianna Wu and Destiny, they're not like the progressive wing. They're going to defend something like Israel. Why? Well, because Israel is part of the institutions and what they've defended. Our intel agencies and our military have worked hand in hand with Israel. So they're going to defend Israel. That's part of their belief. They think the institutions are good and they tell the truth and they're worth defending. And one of the things is when you are an institutionalist like that, those institutions are more important than any one particular politician. So you'll say, I don't give a shit, throw Hillary under the bus. I don't give a shit, throw Bernie under the bus, as long as you're protecting the institutions. So when someone like me comes and attacks those very institutions and says, let's look at the FBI and let's look at their double standards. Let's look at how they've gone after Trump versus how they went after Hillary or how they go after Biden. They can't handle that. They can't handle it. They have to say, fuck that, we don't want to hear it. When I say, look at the institution of the media, how corrupt, fuck that, we don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear the specifics. So when we see the gaslighting that was just done about Biden's cognitive health by all of these people in these institutions, all of the fucking people with power in the institutions knew, at least for a year, that Biden had significant cognitive decline. They should have known for well before that. But giving the benefit of the doubt, they knew for at least a year, and they kept their fucking mouth shut. While they themselves or their allies went around saying, it's all cheap fakes. It's cheap fakes. It's true, Mitch. Many Trump supporters did boo Trump about the vaccine shit. So I hope it was evident. And then I would be remiss. I hope I could find this part, my goodness, from the debate last night. If you needed one clip that basically sums everything up.
Your word on for
Downplay that post. Let me see if I can find this. I mean, it's just epic.
We'll address it. I don't know what you're referring to. And then $5 from neighbor guy. Brianna, instead of just saying Rob is spewing BS, can you provide one concise fact that Rob has provided that's inaccurate? Thank you. Okay.
Sure. There was last truth to Russiagate. COVID was real. January 6th was a insurrection. So there's 3 of them.
What about Russiagate was real?
Rob, I don't want to go into. I'm going to decline to do the fire hose thing. It's not the topic. I'm not going to do that.
Cool. I didn't say anything about January 6th. I didn't say COVID wasn't real. So way to beat those straw mans down there and can't give one example on the thing definitively that I talked about. Now, to answer, that's it. That clip's surreal. Can you name one thing Rob's been wrong about? She brings up Russiagate. It's true. You heard me. I brought up Russiagate in the debate. She said a lot about Russiagate was real. Okay. She says COVID was real. I never once mentioned anywhere in that debate or anywhere else that COVID wasn't real. Never said that once. And then she's brought up January 6th being an insurrection. January 6th was literally not brought up in this debate. So the super chatter asked, can you show me what Rob said? You just keep saying how wrong he is. Can you show me in this debate what he said? So I didn't even ever mention January 6th. I never said COVID wasn't real. So the one thing I talked about was Russiagate. She says a lot of what Russiagate was real, was accurate. I said, cool, can you name me something? And she can't. She says, I'm not going to. I don't know what better sums up that debate. That sums it up, right? She doesn't have a fucking clue. She doesn't know that shit. Even the worst left-wing debaters could say, well, it's true that, that there were people in Trump's circle that were talking to Russians. And I'd be like, yeah, you're right. So what the IG and Durham reports found was there were things in the Steele dossier, for example, that were true. Unfortunately, almost all of those things were things that were publicly reported in the media. And they weren't the salacious crimes. For example, Carter Page did give a speech at a Russian university. It's not a crime. It's not even immoral. But yeah, that's right. That happened. Or, well, Paul Manafort gave polling data to a Russian. No, he gave polling data to a Ukrainian named Konstantin Klimenik, who is alleged to have contacts with Russians. But that didn't stop the Obama State Department from saying Konstantin Klimenik was one of their best contacts in helping to deal with Russians. So when Obama's team was dealing with them, it was all good. But when Manafort gave him polling data, well, that proves Russiagate was real. That'd be like me saying a lot of the conspiracy theories around the Clintons assassinating people has been true, found to be true, definitively. And Brianna would say, can you explain what? I'd say, well, Vince Foster did suffer a gunshot to the head. Right? See? That's part of the conspiracy. I guess, would she say, yep, you're right, that is true? Of course not. It's fucking laughable. Let's check something real quick and then I'll probably wrap up. Now, I stream tonight, so I probably won't be tomorrow. I was going to take tonight off, but I figured with the press conference, it'd probably be willing, or probably should come on. Oh, I was hoping Wick was on to make fun of him. I would have jumped right on his channel and fucking laughed at him. It's unfortunate. Thanks, Corky Clown. Super Chat, Contemporary Compendium. Thank you so much, $5. Really appreciate it. I really do. Thank you. I got the best audience. So yeah, 2 things we went over tonight. We went over the debate last night. Watch it if you haven't. I'll put the link up. I should have not closed out.
Your word, unfortunate.
Here's the link. Now, I will warn you at the beginning of this, I'm doing some terrible karaoke. But that's okay. You can suffer through that. I think the debate starts about 15 minutes in, if you want to fast forward to that. But it doesn't matter. 4-on-1, 5-on-1. They got nothing. They can't defend it. YouTube audience is better than my Twitch audience as far as how many people watch me. Twitch is really, I don't know if it's their algorithm or what, but I'm pushing 20 to 30 viewers on Twitch when I do an average live stream. YouTube, I'm pushing 70 to 100. So, gotta give it to YouTube, right? For some reason, it's not telling me. It used to include how many people were watching on X, but it's not telling me that now. I ought to release a single, right? So yeah, we covered that debate. It was ridiculous. Listen, I like Wick. I think he's a likable guy. He's clearly, he's losing it, man. He's losing it. He's so desperate at the L's that Biden and the Democrats have been taking that he's fucking losing it. And he's lashing out. And I'm not saying this to be mean, but that was an absolute abysmal job of moderation by Wick. Not just because he constantly was cutting me off. Not just because he sat there and allowed when Brianna would cut me off or, whatever. But because he became a participant desperately and wasn't even a good participant. So, I'm not saying I'd never work with Wick or anything again. It's fine. But it's desperation's a stinky cologne. And I guess when you're smacking around the Progressive Victory Pack bosses, when you're just a meager employee of them, you got to try to step in there, right? So, good for him. Good for Wick. Trying his best to save that sinking ship. But, Let me say something for real about Progressive Victory PAC. Questions of legality aside, or morality, should you announce if you're being paid by a PAC? Probably. I don't think it's the end of the world, but you probably should. It is smart for a PAC to realize the potential of streamers in that sort of the media landscape is changing and you want to get a ground level game in there. And I think it's smart that a PAC has realized that. And it's dumb that there aren't conservative groups doing that. Yeah, I know. Fabian's a good dude, and he deserves a bigger audience, too. I agree with that. And I have seen him talk about that. You remember when Steven Crowder, I know there's a lot of controversy around Crowder, but remember when he came out and was like, I'm going to start this brand, and I'm going to bring conservative streamers together, and we're going to have a network, and, we'll pay people, and blah, 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 blah. It's a great idea. I'm reticent to do this. I don't often talk myself up. In fact, it's probably something I should do more often. How phenomenal would I be if I'm being paid by The Blaze to do a nightly show? If they're paying me $120,000 a year, help me build a studio here in my town, help me hire a producer. I don't know if I would have worked for Steven Crowder, but The Blaze, how fucking much good could I do if that was my career? Now, you might be saying, Rob's just trying to scam $120,000. Yes, absolutely true. But how great would that be? And not just me. Yeah, pimp on a blimp, Alex Stein's there, right? But he's doing different things than me. But imagine if there was a network, and I'm not even saying they have to pay tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Imagine if there was a network to build up conservative streamers that really were making inroads. And I think the Alex Stein stuff is good. You should get some people in different niches, people that are doing more comedy stuff, people that are conservatives that are doing more gaming stuff. I think that's something that should be promoted. Take you on Bricky as my DEI. Okay. You got to check the right identity politics boxes, right? Gavin McInnes, that could be a group that would do it. Yeah. But someone that has sort of the know-how to do these things, to set up channels that could provide technical support, financial support, promotional support. I think it's a great idea. And you have to give it to, you could say whatever the fuck you want about Progressive Victory PAC. They're building that network. Yeah, the problem with Fabian is he's always going to hit a wall, even though I like Fabian. I think that one of my favorite streams I've ever participated in that someone else ran, I went on Fabian's show one time with him, and I forget his co-host name, where he had made a PowerPoint that was incredibly persuasive and easy to follow that he went through with me on sort of McCarthy, Joe McCarthy, and McCarthyism. I would tune into that show every week. Wick, or once a week, Fabian makes a PowerPoint on an issue like that where history, he feels, has been unkind or untruthful, and he goes through the details on it. I thought he did a phenomenal job. But Fabian's always going to hit, well, not always. There's an artificial barrier on how far Fabian will get because he is an ANCAP. Now, that doesn't mean that he couldn't break through that barrier by being persuasive and opening more people up. Do I think the talent pool's too low for my plan to be feasible? Yes, if I'm honest. But is it because the talent pool's low because those options don't exist right now? Or is it because those options don't exist because the talent pool's low? We'll never find out if there are diamonds in the rough if that sort of mechanism for finding people never exists in the first place. They're out there. And again, it doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be someone that's like basically a poor man's Rush Limbaugh, right? That's sitting here going through these stories and doing debates and shit like that. It could be like the next, like, I don't follow this shit, but like, who's some big streamers that stream games? You know, why not a conservative group helping promote them? Culture is just as important as politics. And that's definitely true as well, Jimmy Beam. Streamers still aren't big in conservative circles, but they used to be. Not streamers per se, but in 2015, with the meme magic of Trump, there were so many right-wing content creators on YouTube that were crushing it. And then they all got demonetized and stuff. So it's just something to think about. I have to tip my cap to the people in Progressive Victory. That's true too, just kidding. But that's all the more reason for a platform to come out. Are Podge twins with the Blaze? I don't know. But I'll have to give my boy Alex Stein, I'll have to talk to him. I got to get a meeting with Glenn Beck. I would love to talk to Glenn Beck anyways, but yeah, that's probably my fault, okay, the titles, but Elk does a phenomenal job. But yeah, it's something to think about, and I would absolutely love to be given a chance. I mean, shit, even if it was just a once a week show. But I think that if I was able to hire my own producer, you know, you're talking investing a decent amount of money in me, though. It'd have to be enough money that I could quit my job, that I could put together a 2-hour show a day, or maybe even longer, that it would be consistent because it would be my source of employment, that I could hire a producer, that I could have, now this part would be easy, that I could have an office. But the beauty of it is where I live, shit, office space is nothing. You could rent office space for $400 a month, and all I would need for a studio is basically a room like this and the equipment. And then maybe a co-host. And the co-host, the ideal co-host for me is someone who's not going to talk a lot. Someone that's going to be sort of my Ed McMahon type wingman. I think Dan Bongino, I don't know if he still does it. He used to have a co-host, perfect type of co-host for me. Someone that's like, yeah, I saw that. What'd you think about this story? And then Bongino just goes off. That's a great platform. It couldn't be Aftershock. I would love it to be Aftershock, but it couldn't be Aftershock because he's too opinionated as well. Aftershock's more geared to be a host than a co-host, I think. Yeah, pull it up, Jamie. Right. I don't know that Aftershock, it's okay to do a show once in a while with Aftershock, but he's also almost like my equal and not my co-host. Alex gets $62K a year from the Blaze with some bonuses. Yeah, that's probably a reasonable amount. Now, for that amount, I would probably have to still maintain my employment. Maybe I could cut back on hours. I probably made about $90,000 last year at a job where I make $20 an hour because I average working like 80 hours a week. And having a kid, trying to give my kid, I'm trying to send him to a private school. Hunter Avalon, yeah. Say what you will, Israel, this and that. I don't care. I still like Glenn Beck. Connor would be fine, but that's a different type of show. That's a once a week show. Someone that you disagree with. You can't do a show daily like that with someone that disagrees a lot of what you say. It would be too difficult. Yeah, I remember Mug Club. I was talking about that. Do I get tax credits? I haven't looked into it yet. He's not old enough to go to the school, so we'll see. It's going to be a Catholic school, though. Yeah, Peterson's looked pretty rough lately. Yeah, I'm rich. I'm paycheck to paycheck. Now, I'm going to make considerably less this year for different reasons, but so it would be tough to quit my job and go to $62,000 a year. I guess it depends on what the bonuses would be, but that would be tough. Plus, then do you get health care or whatever? But you see the point I'm making. Again, it doesn't have to be me. I'm just making a point. There should be a group that is sponsoring right-wingers. That should be happening. Lactoid would be a great co-host. Sell debate courses, no thanks. Must have a high car payment to be paycheck to paycheck. No, not really. So that's the only source of income we have. Plus having a kid's pretty expensive. Plus then with mortgage, 2 car payments. And we're on a 15-year mortgage instead of a 30-year mortgage because we're trying to get it paid off while Hank's still in high school. And then when you factor in, like we do try to do a lot for Hank. We try to go on trips with him and things like that. And a lot of that then is I drive a lot at work, and that's where a lot of that money comes from. I put like tens of thousands of miles on my car, and so paying for car upkeep, paying for gasoline, etc. It is what it is. So I don't know what exactly, when it was 80,000, 90,000 I made last year, but making $20 an hour, that's a shit ton of work. You know, yeah, Bidenomics has certainly impacted me in a significant way. Like I said, I have this when I debated Noah Smith. I showed people this the other day. This is true. This, I don't know if you can see this. My wife came up with this. So this was certain things that we buy from Trump's last week in office to that week when I was debating Noah Smith with Biden. And you can see 23% on average is what we went up to. That's as best as I could do. I know that's anecdotal, but the way stats are manipulated and stuff, we figured let's go look literally same product to same product. And it's been a 23% increase, and that, you can't see shit. Get some glasses. You can't see it? Well, she did write it in pink pen. Let's try again. Gallon of 2% milk. $3.76, now $4.44. 9-ounce salad kit, $1.98, now $2.98. 1 pound of strawberries, $1.72, now $1.74. Red seedless grapes, $1.56 a pound, $2.68 a pound. Italian bread, $2.17, $2.88. And so then if you go down, it was, the total was $4.33 or $43.38 compared to $56.45. That's a 23% increase. Now that's just on those certain products, but blame Trump's deficit spending, buddy. Yeah, certainly. Maruchan. Like the ramen noodles, I buy myself some Maruchan. Yeah, absolutely. Trump did deficit spend ridiculously, and that certainly did lead to inflation. Make no mistake about it, the Democrats wanted to spend even more. But if you follow my channel, you will absolutely see that I have criticized Trump. And unlike many people that criticize Trump now because it's popular, I actually criticized Trump at the time. And anyone who's followed my channel for a considerable amount of time will know that I spent many a night on here arguing with Trump supporters. I myself, who was one, who volunteered for his 2020 campaign, who called hundreds of houses, who knocked on doors, who went to rallies, went to Republican events for Donald Trump, was doing 24-hour live streams, talking to Congress people, who was offered a job by the Trump campaign that I turned down, was sitting here in real time in the 2020 election, criticizing, and even before, criticizing Trump for his massive spending, his bombing of Syria, his embracing of lockdowns, his employing people from the swamp as he claimed to try to drain the swamp like John Bolton, his defaulting to people like Bill Barr that was screwing him over. So yes, Marichan, I certainly was blaming Trump, and it's certainly true, and it's not just Trump, it's Republicans as well. They went along with the massive spending. They did. It's just that the Democrats are even worse. They basically, the Democrats are like, let's spend trillions. And the Republicans are like, no, no, no. Only hundreds of billions. Okay. Like, yeah, I did catch that, Jimmy Beam. That was one of the things I tweeted out. Economists said if I did what I did, that inflation would go up. It did. It went up immensely. Now, first off, if we believe the numbers from this month, which almost always are revised, they're like, inflation only went up 0.1%. That doesn't mean that prices are falling. I hope I saved this. Someone did a video and they used a chart and I was like, yeah, that sums it up. Here's one chart. Oh, help find the window capture. Oh no. The blue line is nominal wages. The red line's real wages when you factor in inflation. See where we started and see where we're at? Below it. Now, naturally, you would expect that number to gradually increase. So that's number one. That's the first chart. Where was the second? Man, someone did the video. It was excellent. Just a little chart. Maybe it was under here. I probably didn't save it. I don't know. Let me see here real quick. I'll try to find this. Should always save this shit, Rob. Screwed up. But basically, since I can't find it, I'll just tell you what it said. It was a guy and he had a chart. And it's like, it showed when Biden came in. Like, we'll try to draw it here a little for you. It's like this. Right, the chart was like this. Okay? And let's say this is where Biden came in. Right? And the guy's like, well, here's the problem. He's like, the problem is the Biden team's saying, you see this little blip right here? Oh, see, the inflation just went up a little. It's only gone up like 1%. But the problem is people aren't looking at this. They're looking at this. That's what they're looking at. So yes, the way that we look at inflation, we say it only went up 0.1% this month. But you're not looking at, oh, this month, and I've said this over and over, Biden's inflation numbers were so bad for so long. If we accept the government numbers, they were like nearing 10% year over year, that inevitably when they fall to like 4%, they'll say, we beat inflation. So if you're paying $2 a gallon, this is the best example I could give. Say that there's a product that cost $1. So let's say a quart of a gallon of milk cost $1 when Biden comes into office. And 4 years later, that gallon of milk cost $4. So it's increased by 300%, right? Does it matter to you if that increase was $1 one year, $1 the next year, $1 a third year? Or if it was $3 the first year, $0 the second year, $0 the third year. Because in that second scenario, what they'll say is, we beat inflation. We beat it. We did it. We beat inflation. 0% for 2 years running now. But I'm still paying 3 times more or 4 times more. I'm still paying that much more. Doesn't matter. We beat inflation. We did it. That's the absurdity. They're like, oh, the economic numbers are looking great. People are paying out the ass. Their real wages have fallen. That's not normal.
Your word, unfortunately, for this. And so what you said could have been completely accurate for
Let's see if I could find a chart. Oh, for crying. I don't know shit about this chart, but let's look at it real quick. Why does it keep doing this? So, what we're looking at here this is wages, nominal wages. This line, right? So this is average dollars an hour. So you can see starting in 2007, see it's a trajectory going up. The blue is what we're looking at, adjusted for inflation. That's real growth, real wages. And you can see what the trend is. Yes, there are flat portions, but overall, it's going up, it's trending up, trending up. So 2000, Obama comes in 2008. By the time he leaves in 2016, we went from a little under 20, we'll say $20.80 to where he leaves in 2016. We're at $22. So your real wages over that period went up. They went up. Trump, 2016 to leaving 2021, 2017, we'll say be fair. So he comes in, it's 22. When he's leaving 2021, look at this. He went from $22 to 23. We'll say generously $23.60. Then look when Biden comes in. And we haven't even got to the end. It's falling. Look at down here. It shows you. The normal is, even though there'll be peaks and valleys, it's generally trajecting up. Almost the entirety of Biden's administration, it's been going down. And it's going to end up lower than when he started. That's what people see. So all this talk of, the greatest economy we've ever seen. Bullshit. And the problem is, because inflation, wages go up, inflation's going up more, which is why real wages are down. Inflation tends to hurt the people at the lower end of the scale more. It is before taxes, and Trump did lower taxes, yes. Because you spend a bigger proportion of your income for necessities. So if groceries increase by 25%, and you spend 30% on your income on groceries, that 25% increase hurts you more than if you're a millionaire and only spend 1% of your income on groceries. That's why the economy is very difficult. No matter how much they try to spin it, you can't bullshit the person who's buying groceries. You can't bullshit them. They know when it's bullshit. Trust us, you're doing great. No, I'm not. They'll do the same with border crossings are down. Right, from the record highs that you had. Trying to crack down at the last minute on an election year to go, look, we care about the border, is bullshit. If you care about the border, why didn't you vote for the SAVE Act? Why'd you promise to veto it? We know it's corporate greed, it's climate change. And that's why I said the messaging from Biden's team has been absolutely wretched on so many of these issues, particularly the economy. They've spent 3 years telling us the economy is doing great. And that message doesn't work for people that are struggling. In fact, it's seen as a slap in the face to them. They're like, no, it's not fucking great. I'm struggling. I'm doing worse now than I was in 2019. That's the story for most people that are working class. Their real wages have decreased. That's the story. And that's even if we accept the official government numbers, which I have reason to suspect are full of shit, that they're painting a rosier picture. The narrative should have been all along, absolutely, many people are worse off now, but it was because of COVID. It's because Trump fucked up COVID. That's what the narrative should have been. Shit, Marochan made an argument in here. They should have been saying, look, Trump massively expanded the deficit. That's one of the reasons inflation. That should have been the narrative from the Democrats. But instead it was the economy's doing great. It's doing great. Okay. So if you're someone it's not doing great for, you're like, well, fuck, why am I voting for these people? There's no help coming from them. They say I should be doing great. You see the problem? All right, finishing up. We talked about Biden's speech tonight. I think the real winner is Trump and the loser is the people that are trying to move Biden, because I think although it was a poor performance ridden with gaffes tonight, it ultimately wasn't the disaster that his debate performance was. So it basically didn't move the needle. The Democrats that want to maintain Biden are going to walk out of tonight saying we still want Biden. The Democrats that want to remove Biden didn't see anything that's really going to change their mind. So they're still going to remove Biden, which means that the needle doesn't move. And right now the needle is in this awkward position where the Democrats are split and they don't know what direction to go in, and it's harming them, and it's harming their chances. So that means that tonight was good for Trump, and it's bad for the people that want Biden to be removed. So that's ultimately my take on it. I think that some of these gaffes are hilarious, such as Trump being the vice president, but ultimately it's things that you could expect even a normal person would do. The problem is the pattern of Biden doing it over and over, like claiming Putin was the president of Ukraine earlier in the day, mixed in with the fact that we were denied the obvious truth for months and years of Biden's obvious cognitive decline, has led to people scrutinizing his every move. And the truth is, Biden does have cognitive decline, so he's not going to get some super drug cocktail where it all disappears and everyone's fears are assuaged. It's not happening. Even if he has some really good performances, it's not enough to outweigh what people have seen. And tonight wasn't a really good performance. It was a below average performance, but because the expectations for Biden are so low, he didn't fall flat in his face, he didn't shit his pants, he didn't perform as poorly as he did in the debate. So he crossed that low bar that is set specifically for Biden because people know how bad he is. So can you expect a normal person to call his VP Trump and then call him her? It's actually a walking zombie. No, I don't disagree, but I just want to say, if you went through all of my past thousands of hours of streaming, is there a chance that I've said someone's name incorrectly? Of course, there's a chance of that. But yeah, he's definitely got severe problems. He's not capable to be president. We all know it. Many of us have known it for years. And it's people behind the show. Again, my entire argument is that I don't trust institutions, that the people's vote and voice doesn't really matter, that it's unelected bureaucrats that are really running our country. And every day we see more and more evidence of it. And now the Democrats, many of them are just admitting it. Well, who cares if Biden's in poor condition? The people running his campaign, right. That's exactly right. Don't worry, Sushi Revolution. I will not let them live it down. That's one of my specialties. So do not worry. Go watch the debate I had last night. So, all right, not going to worry about raiding anyone tonight. We're just going to get out of here. Thank you so much. You probably won't see me till at least Monday or Tuesday. Maybe I'll do a little mobile stream while I'm at work. Check out my friend Let's Be Frank's show. I'll leave him upload it first, but Let's Be Frank on YouTube. Let's see if I can find his channel. I actually sat down for a half-an-hour interview with him today. He's going to be uploading that. And I think that some good stuff. Frank, it wasn't live, but here we go. Here's his channel. Let's Be Frank 38. So check it out. Let's Be Frank is based. He's great. So check that out. He'll be putting that video up soon, and then someday I'll upload those videos as well. He was generous enough to send them to me as well, but I don't want to step on his toes, so I'm going to leave him upload them first. So, all right, guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you especially to the people that donated. Special thanks to my friend Aftershock, my editor Black Elk, to my wife for letting me do this show and being a huge, huge part of why I'm capable of doing it. So hope you all had a great night, enjoyed the stream, and look forward to seeing you all soon. As always, have a good one.